Thank you.
Okay, we're good. Okay, sorry about that.
Was made by the Charleston Foundation. We feel this proposal misses an opportunity to celebrate this building's unique Art Deco style, which based on photographic evidence appears to reflect the original configuration of the early unit. While we're supportive of efforts to rehabilitate the building to facilitate the use, we're concerned that the proposal to make conjectural changes to the facade. As part of this project, historic character defining details should be preserved, including the central rectangular opening and vertical line work. We encourage the applicant to return with a more preservation-minded approach that embraces the existing architecture. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who has anything to speak? Thank you. Okay, city staff's comments and recommendations, please.
Retain vertical recesses on center of front facade. Since the building was constructed in the 1800s, the existing facade is not original and has been altered. Staff has not found any photographs of the building before alterations. For this reason, we know the rectangular window is not original. An arch window does seem more appropriate for an Art Deco facade. Arch window should be recessed into the wall opening, especially since it is the main feature of the facade. Signage should be revised and reviewed separately. As proposed, exceeds the allowable height in the sign band. While lights on storefront designs are not vertical per Charleston tradition and VR principles, the proportions seem to work with the facade design. Gas sconce light will require encroachment permits. The design of the light is appropriate for the building. After consultation with a preservation professional, clean existing limestone panels. Staff recommendation is conceptual approval with board and staff comments and a final review by staff.
Thank you. Does the applicant have any clarification or address any of the public or city staff comments? Would you like to address any of the public or city staff comments? Thank you. Okay, we will over to board discussion and a vote.
I'd like to ask Frankie a question before we get started. Frankie, is the alleyway in the back, that's not a public right of way?
No, sir.
Okay.
Oh, it's not? I walk there all the time.
Have you guys done any, determined any visibility?
We haven't been able to determine any on the rear facade,
I was out there myself and it looks like it's
not from public rights of way.
public right of way, so you can almost take that off the table and concentrate on the front side.
And I do know that zoning had limited them to the roof deck that is existing. There wasn't any expansion or extension of that allowed, which I believe he had noted on the front page.
So fair to note that we will not be discussing
Correct.
any of the elements on the rear of the building, primarily just the facade. Thank you.
Charleston owns that alley. Is that what
I think so.
And can I ask you to clarify your last comment, Frankie, about the existing limestone panels? Because they're proposing to remove all of
I
that. Understand it.
believe that was Tori. I believe she thought the limestone panels were staying and said they should be cleaned because there's some extensive damage on them. She might have missed the part where they were being changed.
One more question for the applicant. Can you just confirm that the windows and doors you're proposing are not aluminum but steel?
Yes, we have
So
steel
the-
in our.
Okay. Okay, well, I agree with Historic Charleston that it's a nicely composed, thorough application, and I appreciate that. And I also agree with the preservation groups that the Art Deco flavor of the building is worth retaining and enhancing. And I'm a little ambivalent about the arched window, but I probably would err on the side of keeping the rectangular one. And I think it could be pretty cool if that became a steel window as well. And I would just hope for some real clarity about the materials. I'm a little nervous about that limestone material. I know we've had like seemingly endless conversations about real limestone versus anything composite, so just want to be sure that gets worked out.
Seems to be some confusion about whether the existing panels for limestone converted. That reference was clean limestone. But
But the proposal is to remove them, and they do appear to be in really bad shape.
Yeah, I agree with both preservation groups. Minimal Art Deco facade, and it should be retained. It may not be the original facade, but it's gained historic significance just over its stage time. I think you have a lot of leeway on the ground floor of about any of that that's original. So I would prefer to see the upper portion of the building retained. There could be some new windows, that sort of thing, but I think there's a lot that could happen on the ground floor as long as it's done in a way that's respectful to the
disagree with what's been said so far. I think that retaining the Art Deco character is important. And the storefront, looking at it in the photographs, I think it's has been changed. I don't know about brake metal at the curb level. I have a little concern about that. I think a higher quality material there might be more appropriate. But I agree with Bill. I think there's room for alteration to storefront, but I think the upper part of that building should retain its Art Deco character.
And I would say, as for me, the only things that I would note would be I think the retention of the deco details is important. It sure looks like Gus Constantine to me. He was very prolific at this period of time in the 1940s. That was his flair, and he did a lot of work on King Street. Surprised he was not involved in that. And I do think the steel windows are in keeping with that vintage of work. But still see examples of that. So more inclined to support the retention of the details of the facade as well. And also, one thing I believe myself I would like to see would be a little more relief or reveal in the placement of the storefront and the upper glass. The storefront's almost flush with the base of the limestone. There could and should be more of a depth of reveal there in my mind. That's really all I have. So, okay. Anybody wishes to forward a motion? Or?
Right before I go, does anybody have feelings one way or the other about that, what looks like a black aluminum cap on the parapet? Like maybe a deferral, it's close and it's a nice design, but I think it could use another round of thinking about how to respect and celebrate the Art Deco, which might, in my mind, even include rethinking the details of the limestone panels and all that, which look to be a little more classical right now. Yeah.
I think whatever happens on the ground, probably simplify what's proposed now.
So I will make a motion for deferral with staff conditions 1 or and board conditions to restudy the front facade, let's embrace the Art Deco character of the building. We'll also mention recessing the fenestration into the front facade wall. And clarifying the materials, clarifying and refining the proposed materials for the storefront.
Okay. So there's a motion, hopefully I get this right, Julia, a motion for deferral with keeping in mind staff condition 1, 3, 5, and 6. And board conditions to, or board comments to retain the Art Deco elements to the facade, to provide a recess or reveal to the fenestration, proposed fenestration, and to clarify materiality to be used for the storefront. Do I have a second?
Staff asks for a clarification, was staff 1 or 3 or 4?
4.
4. Second from Fillmore? Is that right, Fillmore? Did you second? I did. You did, okay. So there's a motion for deferral from Julia, a second from Fillmore. We'll call the vote. Julia?
Yay in favor.
Bill? Fillmore? Yay. Chair votes yea in favor. The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Still going.
What's her second thing now? No, she's number 3 too.
Ah, great. Okay, let's just get this out of the way real quick. Okay. Item is, let's see, number 33 Poinsett Street? No?
Oh, you know what?
She's
So she needs to
She
come back.
is
I'm
here for
sorry.
this, okay. And then she's not here for 3, is that right? Okay, great.
Agenda item 2, which is 33 Poinsett Street. Frank, you give us an introduction over to you, please, when you're ready.
Okay, 33 Poinsett is requesting complete demolition of historic structure. It is not surveyed in North Central circa 1946 in the historic materials demolition purview. This is the property's location on Poinsett Street. Site photo. Context of Poinsett. We're not showing the history of the structure. Of the applicants.
The applicant present for 33 Poinsett.
Someone check in the hallway. There were some people out there just to make sure. Do we have a motion to table this until the end of the meeting?
Chairman, motion to table this item to the end of the meeting.
Julia, you seconded that? Yes. All right, I'm auditing.
All right, so we'll move on to item number 3, 130 Fishburne Street. Thank you.
130 Fishburne is requesting partial demolition of historic structure, including a second set of front steps and location of doors. It is a category 4, west side, circuit 1915, and the historic materials demolition permit. The location on Fishburne Street. Existing site photos. Next to Fishburne. Sanborn map showing the history of the structure. Out of 4 architectural inventory photos. Your house. Right over to the applicant.
Julie O'Connor, I'm the designer on the project. Thanks for coming out this morning and good to see you. Can you go back to that survey photo? As we discussed on site today, we have some minor changes to the sides and rear of the house that are probably not visible, and I'll talk about those in a minute, but the main thing I wanted to talk about today was what's on the front, what we'd like to do. And as you could see in the Sanborn maps today, the right or left-hand side of the house used to have a wraparound porch, and as you can see in this photo, interestingly, there was no door upstairs, even when they enclosed that section, and it looks like there wasn't a transom over that door on the left either. What we're doing with this project is transforming this house from a duplex into a single family house, and so that is why we would like to remove the set of stairs on the right-hand side of the house and do a matching railing there. Frankie,
Hopefully.
Oh, no, it is. It looks like you.
oh no. Okay. Sorry about that. Just go to the over there. Oh, that's really small. So this started where we wanted to, start. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And move the doors in from the corners to sort of be a bit more central in the porch bay. And as I mentioned, this whole left-hand section was not a house before. It was a wraparound porch. And so obviously has gone through a lot of changes, as we saw in that survey card as well. And when we sort of started doing that, we realized, the house is quite symmetrical and it would really be beautiful to move the other doors in as well. And as I mentioned on site, the change would be to actually move the doors that are there over. We're not replacing those doors, we would use those. And then on this side, which is the east side, really just removing this non-historic small window up here and adding a couple of windows on the side there, which I don't think is visible. The rear, not visible, but removing this little stoop and doing a little bit of reorganization of the fenestration. And then on the, the other one was the west side. On the east side, just moving these 2 windows down a little bit just for floor plan reasons. But again, using the same windows. So that's kind of the project, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay. Are there any questions of the applicant?
Any sense of the age of the stairs? To the front floor?
Each, so I really don't.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? I didn't see any written public comment. Did I miss that? Didn't see anything in here.
I don't believe so.
Okay. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak from the public? Okay. Thank you. So nothing to rebut, address? Okay,
Or
city,
maybe step.
city staff's comments and recommendations, yes, sorry. Address.
Okay, Staff had an observation that the structure was constructed as a duplex, as was the neighboring building. And then a comment, the right front door is believed to be in its original location, while the left was recessed. There doesn't seem to be functional reason outweighing keeping the right door in its original location. The left side entry has been relocated a couple of times, and our staff doesn't have purview at this time over the location of the left door, since it's less than 50 years old. The second floor left door is also not historic. Location of the windows side reflected the location of one of the two duplex stairways. Relocating these is concerning, but the relocation of windows toward the rear is not. Demolishing one of the twin stairways would alter the story of the property. Suggest instead keeping the stair and altering the hardscape to direct guests to main entry. Staff recommendation: denial of relocation of the right front door, the second floor, right side door, demolition of stair, and relocation of two windows close to front. Approval for relocation of windows toward rear, the relocation of left front door, and assuming that's supposed to say second floor left.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Julie, would you like to address any of
Yeah,
those?
I would. And I appreciate staff's comments for sure, but I don't believe that the location of these doors or even the windows on the side are character defining to the structure, nor do I think that the second set of stairs are necessarily character defining. I agree, it's part of the story, but I feel like because we're utilizing those materials and just relocating them slightly, I still feel like the character of the house is intact. We're not changing form or anything that would really speak to the character of the building.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll take it into board discussion and a vote.
Quick question. I apologize for being tardy. On the east elevation, it's only the second floor, second window. I mean, second floor, second window that was being relocated. Is that correct?
Yes, I think it's. No,
Sorry, my
both of
slide's
them-
messed up.
Two are moving
Both.
around.
Mhm,
They're both
Both
moving
the second
together.
and first.
yes,
I was looking at the plans.
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
I will mention, I should have said this, sorry, that I did do the design for the renovation of the neighboring house as well. Unfortunately, it had been completely torn apart by somebody prior to my clients buying it, but we did also change it from a duplex to a single family house.
I'm comfortable with repositioning the front doors. They are really up really close to the corner board, so I think this is actually an improvement in that respect. And I understand the logic behind eliminating the redundant stairs. I personally don't think they contribute that much. The various windows I'm fine with, and the it's kind of inconsequential there, so I'm pretty comfortable.
If I really believed that the existing stairs on the right-hand side were as it is, I'm not that concerned about losing them. Surprisingly, I am kind of torn about relocating the doors on the right, because I know it looks beautiful in elevation and you can make it look like that for the front door on the left. But I just don't think, once the railing goes up on the right, I don't think the effect of leaving it in its historic location would be that great, would be detrimental to the whole design. So I'm on the fence about that because I sort of believe that it is the original location. If interior demolition proved otherwise or exploration proved otherwise, then I could change my mind.
Yeah, I agree with most of the comments that have been made. I'm a little bit torn too, same thing, Julia, because I guess by those doors to the right that are so far over into the corner, it's just indicative of the fact that you probably walk right into a stair, and that was the original configuration from what we know of the house, and it's historic. So the item I would think more about in this proposed scope of work. So.
I think that probably that we're on the right in its original location. I think that porch originally turned back. The window there was probably really, really close to the corner board as well. So I do have a little problem with the move hand doors over. I know it would, to our eye, it would look better if it were centered on the columns, but I think it probably is in its original location. I think probably the two windows on the east elevation are in their original location as well. I don't think they're terribly visible. So I have less concern about that. I'm still a little unclear about the stairs. I think that stair configuration is probably, it's not, and I don't know the date, and I'm not sure that construction is actually original, but I think it very likely is.
Are you, if I can just ask, are you fully convinced that this was originally a duplex just because of the configuration? Are you fully convinced that it was originally a duplex versus conversion later?
From what I've heard, I think it was probably looking at duplex. Isn't that the city's position?
It is.
Frankly, that it was built as a duplex.
And that's from, where's that coming from?
We haven't found anything to contradict that it was originally a duplex, and it was just based on all of the photos.
If there was some, evidence that what I would go do stairs. I'm not. I understand that. I actually think the stairs are interesting.
Yeah.
But I understand what's moving them. The stairs to me are a little like the doors. They are original. I would be a little reluctant to.
In my calculus, that I'm more comfortable with the right-hand doors staying in that awkward position, knowing that they're going to have railing in front of them and the impact would be pretty minimal to the public view. And on that point, I wouldn't even have any issue if they wanted to change the entry door on the left and make it more of a prominent entry door and distinguish it from the other, personally. It'd be, you'd have to be a cool insider to know which stair to go to, but I think that might be kind of annoying. Should I try?
Yeah. Want to try one? Or should we?
Oh,
You're gonna get try?
no, I see.
Sure, you try.
Really? You inspired? So I will make a motion for approval of demolition of the stair on the right-hand side and relocation of the two windows close to the front. Relocation of the windows toward the rear. And relocation of the. How about this? I'll make a motion for approval with one exception. The denial of relocation of the doors on the right, upstairs and downstairs.
For a what level of approval? You make a motion, staff?
For demo, I think it would be.
Oh, sorry, this,
fine.
yeah, for them, yeah. Okay. So Julia's made a motion for approval of those conditions with the exception of the relocation of the right-hand doors of the street facade, both on the first and second levels. Is there a second? Second by Bill Turner. Okay, call the vote.
Okay.
Fillmore,
I opposed.
Bill Turner. Chair votes for the motion. You in favor? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, agenda items 4 and 5, if you want to, as the applicant, if you would like to, you can present both at the same time, just to let you know. But if not, you can treat this separately. So items 4 and 5 are 34 Percy Street. Frank, you could give us an introduction overview of both.
It is requesting partial demolition of historic structure, including rear addition. That I'm part of the request in a second. It is a category 4 in Canterbury, Elliott Borough, pre-1944 in the Old City District. And since we've got them in here twice. And also conceptual approval for alterations to existing structure and new rear addition. This is the property's location on Percy Street. Take photos. Sanborn maps showing the history of the property. Architectural inventory card for this property. Turn it over to the applicant. We had you separate the item because we have to vote on them separately. You want me to go back to the first set of slides because I think there were some differences.
There's some additional
Not at
photos
all.
in there that are relevant to the demolition portion of the request.
And I will entertain additional time since you're.
I'll try to get through it. Information that's repetitive and just for context.
And also, I'm architect for the project. Thank you guys for being here this evening. We're really happy to be presenting this to you. The first portion of the application was for demolition, partial demolition of the rear portion of the structure.
deed states that this project was built around 1885. But it goes up on the Sanborn, it's 1944, so we found that a little bit fascinating for this jump in time. But we're working with the information that we have. They did South Carolina Art History information that's provided on there was done in the 80s and about the alterations that took place post 1944. So by 1985, these things had been done. There's some photos of the site. They added the rear portion. There was a single story addition on there in 1944, and at some point, at least 3 walls of that were taken down, and then it was extended up to the second level. They also infilled a portion of the piazza and did a lot of things to the piazza that changed the original historic character. The floor was concrete, was switched to concrete. They added a brick piazza screen along the front. We're assuming they went from wood to cast iron columns and railings, and then they did a piazza infill that is up on the second level. And so those elements are the ones that we're requesting demolition for, so that we can change this from the duplex that it's become into the single family home. These photos are particularly interesting on the first level. Like, I'm thinking the only portion of this addition that's actually left from what we saw in 1944 is shown in the top. You see the brick foundation and what looks like a partial stucco wall, and then as it turns and transitions, it changes to random CMU blocks, and then you get some siding. So I think that's really all that's left. And when they modified this, they really did remove a bit of what would have been potentially historic, if anything wasn't there from the late 19th century. There's the second level. All the photos that you'll see of this building, it's in very serious disrepair. It was listed in the 80s as being in good condition, so we can only assume that over the last 40-ish years, it's really gone downhill. So there are parts of it that we're looking to take off. Piazza screen in particular is one of those things. We don't feel that this is a defining characteristic for history, so we'd like to take it down and put something back that would be more in tune with the neighborhood and vernacular. And we're also proposing to make some changes to the piazza to switch back to a wood structure and remove all of the elements that were added. Showing the rear additions being removed from the back. Show that as well. It kind of shows how the piazza infill wrapped around on the second level. You can see where they added that, and it's slightly piazza. When we remove that, we would retain the existing piazza. So we would only remove the little portion to the right on that roof plan that's kind of sticking out that went above the addition. The elevation showing the existing structure. I can go ahead and move it to the next portion. Yep. Okay. These are yours, I'm sorry. These are mine. Is there anything that you wanted to add before I start? I mentioned some of this information is redundant, so I'm going to pop back through it. Here we're showing on the site plan the portion that we're looking to remove, shown in red on the left-hand side, and then the new site plan on the right-hand side showing the addition. So what we're doing is switching this from a really modest-sized duplex, removing that small rear addition, and then adding something to the back that will allow us to include utilities, modern restrooms, kitchen, all the things that you. Showing the demolition portion again. It shows the new proposal. We're looking to retain everything that's possible with the existing single house that is historic. We want to repoint the masonry chimneys. We want to maintain all of that. The siding that we can retain, we'll do that. Any of it, we'll do that. Windows and doors that are historic, we'll retain this as well. And repair and replace any of those elements in kind as we do delivery demolition. I'm seeing the photos. It is in pretty bad shape, so we do know that a good portion of this building is going to have to be put back together or rebuilt in order to save it. But within the gray areas of the original single house, we want to do that in the character of that portion. The addition will be adding some modern features to the
home, adding additional bedroom, family room, dining room, restrooms, and a rear entry. And we'll be doing a gable roof on the addition as well that will step down slightly. The massing of the addition is also slightly indented from what's there, so that it's not proud or looking out past it. So we're using a slight hyphen to add on to the building, a little bit of a wooden storefront. We want to use materials that are going to be compatible with there, so we're coming back with wood, but modifying maybe the exposure or the lap type of the siding. The roof would be the same roof type that would go across, that would be consistent in style. The piazza screen will be rebuilt on the front, again going back to the more traditional wood construction. We're looking to do more of a shiplap siding with a smaller exposure there, just to differentiate it as something that was not originally there, and a very simple profile for the door with the slope transient on top. And then we would be going columns and wood railings. And an additional entry back there so that you don't have to come out to the front and go back out to the front door on Percy Street, so you'd be able to drive into the driveway and enter from the rear. And then adding windows there in the master bedroom that you could open to after reasons. The plans that give a little bit more information about what would be going in the addition. Showing the outdoor restoration. The original images that illustrate the massing of the
Do any board members have any questions for the applicant?
A couple of them. The site plan shows a future building. Have you thought about what site improvements will be made with the building versus when the other building?
So with this building, we would definitely be working to rehabilitate the drive that's adjacent to the building. We've spoken with zoning, that's to and from. We've done a parking count to ensure that we can back out for both structures. So we would be providing parking staffed for just this, and then in the future, if another is added, then we've shown some parking.
Both in the back.
Yes, we plan for the ability to park 4 cars on the site.
One other question, it's just sort of a curiosity thing. You're adding windows along the north elevation. I assume you're able to do that because oddly enough, the building is set on the property. I'm just thinking our code.
I think we have enough space between the buildings.
It looks like it's 3+ feet
Yeah,
for some reason.
Yeah, we had a 3-foot offset there.
3 feet.
Lucky for you.
You're like,
That's right.
Questions? Hang on.
Remember, we're looking at demolition and the design, so any questions?
Does staff or the applicant have any sense of visibility of the rear from coming? Visibility. Okay, and question for the applicant. What is the width of the reveal of the hyphen? Do you know that off the top of your head?
Oh, it definitely,
Like
it's about 6 inches. It's pretty
6.
minimal.
And just curious, you've got shutters proposed for the addition, but not for the front elevation or any of the historic. Was that something that you intentionally?
No, I'm on the minutes about
Okay,
what we want
gotcha.
to do with the front. I know we'd like to put them on the back. I think we would. But they don't exist now, so I was unsure whether we would want to go that direction or not.
Alrighty. Yeah, thank you.
Any questions at this time? Do we have anyone speaking from the public? we did have a decision statement from Preservation Society. Dear board members, the PSD appreciates the applicant meeting with us and responding to our feedback. We are highly supportive of efforts to rehabilitate this long neglected building. As this project moves forward, we suggest setting options to lighten the massing of the flat roofed addition. It would be preferable for the roof line to be more subordinate by engaging with the main body of the building under the eave. Lastly, even if the piazza screen and door surround are not historic, we encourage more creativity in drawing from neighborhood precedents to inform a contextual design approach. Thank you for considering our position in this matter. All right, and no other public comments. Okay, Frank, you'll give us these staff comments and recommendations, please.
Scroll back for the demolition. The rear addition has been added onto, made both wider and taller. The original one-story addition appeared, it's documented from before 1944 and may have been original to the structure. However, it's been altered a great deal. Removing the enclosure at the second floor piazza, the piazza stairs, the piazza concrete slab, ashlar, siding, and the metal columns will benefit the project. Because of the alteration, the only portion of the original addition that is visible is the left sidewall and foundation, which is not a substantial amount of that original form. Drawing notes indicate the standing seam roof to be. I had a question for the applicant on to confirm that the plan is to patch this metal roof. Staff recommendation is approval of partial demolition. Any other conceptual comments?
Well, she has the opportunity to
Oh, yeah, okay.
reply, so. Cool.
So for this addition, staff comments is to increase the setback for the new rear addition on the west elevation, especially at the hyphen. Not be wider than the main body of the house, but the proposed extends as far as the piazza on the east elevation. The proposed piazza screening, as this should be differentiated from the new rear addition to prevent creating a fault system. The piazza screen door should include a hood. I recommend salvaging the existing hood and coordinate detailing at the piazza screen door with conditions for slab removal. Staff recommendation is conceptual approval with board and staff comments.
Thank you, Frank. Ms. Dawson, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the city staff comments?
Here, but one of the photos that was in there was drone footage, or was from a photo, so we have looked to see what kind of conditions, and it was in better than we thought conditions. So we would repair it if it's possible.
Since camera law is under, it's in surprisingly good shape. We intend to try to keep the whole roof. Obviously, the bar on the addition is pretty bad. We'll take that off. But on the main portion and on the piazza portion, we look pretty good.
Thanks. Public comment on the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and vote.
What's the demolition and vote on that first?
I think so.
Is that how it works?
Yeah, sounds good. I think so.
Sorry?
That would really help my note
Yeah,
taking for the
could imagine.
results.
I'll just try to
I do
remember.
think we treat, for our purposes here, I think we treat them as
Okay.
two separate sections. So demolition first.
I don't think there's much left of the addition in the back. I mean, it started out as one story, about 2/3 of the size of the footprint it is now. Third of it, not original, so. The rear addition coming off or any of the other, later added elements.
Did you make a motion for,
He said I'm fine with, he didn't
approval
say
of partial
anything.
demolition?
Approval for partial demolition.
Thank you, Turner. That was a second from Julia. I'll put the motion to a vote. Bill Hewitt,
Yay in favor.
Bill Moore,
Yay in favor.
Bill Turner,
In favor.
Julia, Chair votes the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Okay, agenda item number 5, now we'll deliberate on 34 Percy's, the request for conceptual approval.
Right. Conceptually, I think it's going in a really good direction. I know I've researched that area so many times, and almost every house has some sort of piece behind the piazza that sticks out or somewhere because you just have to fit restrooms. So I'm not terribly concerned with the fact that that bay in the rear comes out and you can see it through the piazza in theory. The roof line of it, I would tend to agree with the Preservation Society that it might be better if you were able to lower that ceiling height and tuck it under the eave in that bathroom. I think that would work a lot better. And yeah, interior drains kind of shocked me as a proposal. I'd be scared of them. And then in terms of moving forward, I mean, just some of the details that would need refining that I see just quickly looking are, you know, the proportions of the transom windows, the column trim, the piazza screen details, the canopy over that, and the window trim. Just I know that this is conceptual, but I think those are things to pay attention to as you go forward, and there's probably some more on that list. And it would be good to clarify a little bit the proposed green space, because looking at it now, I hear, you know, the ghost of Glenn, that it's just drive, parking, you know, hopefully there's somewhere to put a flower on the lot. And also HVAC elements should probably be acknowledged on the site plan. Don't think you could salvage that existing canopy over the front entry. It's really, really wonky.
I agree with the comments, Julia. I agree with a lot of your comments. I think the form is basically what we look to see. It's hyphenated, and it's I just lined up the proposed edge of the piazza with the addition there in the back, and it looks like the addition is back some inches. I can't tell how many, but it does look like the addition is slightly set back from the piazza. And given the sort of tightness of the space and the practical application of what's going on, I think it's okay in my vote. I do agree that there are probably plenty of other detailing issues that do need to be addressed. The list that Julia gave definitely applicable. Also, you know, the detailing of that balcony and the railing system involved with that. That's, even though it's on the back of the house, simply because it is part of, I guess, this new construction, I really would like to see those details. And then that roof, you're pretty brave to take that on, and I don't see any relief scuppers or anything like that. So if you're proposing any of that, any relief scuppers or downspouts, you'll want to show all that on your plans, applicable to what you're planning to do. Otherwise, conceptually, I think it's fine with some of the comments that have been made.
About and back being a little wider than we would normally like to see, because house, and I mean, just undertaking this project is really appreciated, because that's a really neglected and abused little single house, and so I think there's some leeway there. Trying to get a little more space in there, and I think I agree with Bill. I mean, the way it's put together is generally what we like to see, and it is a tiny bit back from the porch, the way I saw it. Not that much. But yeah. Just agree with you.
I have a few things. Also, you know, please thank your owner for taking this on. It kind of shows that these houses that are in really bad shape, they can't be stayed. Overall, I think that the plans are good. Most of what I've got is just sort of detailed type of things. piazza railings, they look pretty tall, and I assume that you're trying to meet modern day code on those. Right now, things have changed around here, and I'll be usually building inspections to kind of give some leeway on the height of piazza railings on these historic homes. I'd like to,
That is correct.
I'd like to see them lower to their historic height. The piazza screen wall needs a little bit of refinement. I think a possible door hood was mentioned earlier. There are plenty of examples up in that neighborhood that you could pull from. The piazza screen door seems to kind of float. It needs to be grounded somehow. You know, to a sill or something. This hasn't been mentioned, but the proposed piazza screen walls to the rear of the piazza, they trouble me a little bit. I don't think they're necessary, and with them being on the original structure, I would like to see those eliminated. It would just simplify the whole design. I think everyone sort of covered any comments I had on the new construction of the back, but also I'd like to speak about site, I-2 of River Julia. There's got to be room made on the site for some green space. One thing that's possible is that eventually the parking would happen in the back and you wouldn't be stacking the driveway. And so the driveway could be narrower. With trying to get that down to a minimum width, that would at least give you some space from the areas that are visible from the street. And you come back for preliminary level, I'd like to see a more some great details on things like your paving materials, if you're doing any fences or walls or anything like that. We need to see that kind of information as well. Other than that, I'm comfortable with the way things are going.
Okay, I'm gonna try to make a motion. Will be for conceptual approval with comments. I don't totally understand.
But it appeared that the piazza screen was matching the material of the new addition, and we were recommending they be.
Okay, sure. Staff comment 3 and board comments to eliminate the piazza screen at the rear of the piazzas, to clarify the proposed site plan and green space, including mechanical elements, and for feeling generous, also trash. And to reduce the height of the rear bay so that it is lower than the eave of the addition. To restudy, or develop the details. A list. Okay,
Just a question, Julia, if you had mentioned staff's comment number 3 only, is that correct? Entertainment before? It's not that door.
If we could just strike the second sentence, because I don't think this existing okay.
So
I think she intends to have it there.
No, it's not.
There's not one.
four, but without.
Okay, yeah. Staff comment for
Okay, so we have a motion
first
on
off.
the floor for conceptual approval with staff comment 3 and staff comment 4, but only the piazza screen door should include it. None of the things. And then a few board comments. 1, to eliminate the piazza screen at the rear. 2 is to clarify the site plan showing proposed green space, HVAC elements, trash. 4, 3, to reduce the height.
The rear bay.
Of the rear bay, yeah. Reduce the height of the rear bay. And 4, to develop the details as discussed in board comments. Do I have a second to Julie's motion?
Second.
The motion to a vote, Fillmore,
Yeah, in favor.
Bill Turner,
Yeah, in favor.
Julia,
Yay in favor.
Bill Booth,
Yay, in favor.
chair votes the majority, and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all, appreciate it.
When you are ready, agenda item number 6, 640 King Street.
Okay, 640 King is requesting partial demolition of historic structure for rear addition. It is a category 3 in Canberra, Elliott Borough, circuit 1852 in Bolton, Georgia. This is the property's location on King Street. Existing site photos. And one map showing the history of the property. The board requested last time the 1908 sandboard, as well as able to find that.
Maybe this is one too, if the applicant is comfortable, you can address both the demolition request and the preliminary approval at the same time, and I'll allow additional time for your presentation if needed. And frankly, I don't know if you have a introduction or overview of this project.
It is this.
Kim Kraft, architect, Kraft Design Studio. So I can control it this, but I can't zoom.
No, but if you need me to do, I can do it for you.
Aim it that way, Kenny, I think. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it does, on my computer. Or you have it in it.
Just aim it that way.
So I have to.
Yeah, aim it at her computer.
So yes, I was not able to attend the consensus bill, but I'm here for round 2. We have the demolition request, the building, a single house, sort of 1852 timeframe, 1881. She got some very unfortunate location in the crosstown came in the last law. Recognition of the next to the crosstown. If you scan it on the left, the bottom left side, the whole thing had been covered over with siding and had to kind of modify it and convert it into a feed store along the way. There's the upper back left 2 windows you can see. There's sort of 2/2 window panes. And then from there over to the right, or multi-pane 6/6. it's around that point, basically between those pairs of windows that it starts. And they followed the width, they followed the roof line, and it seemed like at some point along the way the roof was re-roofed. But if there is a definitely a difference between the construction and the beginning of the primary structure and then the addition structure. The construction, it seems like there's things like plywood for siding, there's concrete foundation, or concrete floors, actually, concrete floors. The windows are kind of hodgepodge and non-matching.
Back out.
Okay. Actually, there were quite a number of unfortunate modifications. The front of the piazza was brutally infill block. The piazza has a concrete floor on the bottom and these concrete leads. They chopped the columns, wood columns off, and kind of just really kind of brutalized the piazza. There's an addition on the upper portion of the original house portion that has an infill to capture that space, but rework it in such a way that it looks more like an infill porch, looks more additional. Demo wise, the rear wing is, we've done the Sanborn research. I'm not aware of the 1920s. Had been looking at it, seen it in 1944. It seemed most plausible that it was that all the sort of the bad ideas were done at the same time. The concrete porch, concrete floor, because the addition does have a concrete floor. The windows are non-matching. There's sort of like the next shot shows some interior photo that badly deteriorated. That bottom right is a 6-pane window that was a very rear window that's kind of fallen and broken down. It was not a 6/6 window, it was a single sash window. You can see the concrete floor. The roof, one side it's staying the same, on the other side it seems to be at 5E, but it's all tinted, and it's pretty bad shape. This in 2008, it had been approved for demolition of that rear wing. Since then, 18 years have passed with nothing to neglect on the building. I'm going to counter your 1928 Sanborn structural report that we have. I emailed it earlier also, I think, right?
Yes, but we have to post things 5 days ahead of the meeting so the public can look at it, so I'm not able to provide it to the board.
Okay, well maybe I guess we had a structural engineer to look at it and has done an assessment on it. The recommendation is that it's in bad shape, that he believes that it's not. In terms of the condition of it, foundation, it's dirt in some cases. It's the recommendation of the engineer that demolition and replacing of the foundation framing. From other perspectives, from just sort of the massing of the building and the concept is to really bring it back to the original footprint, bring it back to the original single house with the piazza, and consolidate. It's in some cases additions might have been more sensitively done. In this case, it just sort of creates this super long massing that's not in character with the integrity of the building. Kind of just want to go the hodgepodge collection of windows. We believe in bringing it back to its original 1870s footprint. It seems to be an appropriate way to handle demolition. Should I roll right into the next one?
If you're comfortable, you can go ahead and roll into the
Okay.
next one, and we'll treat it
Right. I
similarly.
mean, originally I felt like seeing the whole picture makes sense in terms of understanding current versus
We'll deliberate on the application separately, but for purposes of presentation and public comment.
And I do have some of the same slides that shows. In this case, again, people are zooming in on the image. One of the things we'll see in the proposed alterations, this facade, it's the north facade, it's the original privacy side. It's been very neglected, and it has, obviously from a privacy side, it doesn't have a lot of windows. At the moment, based on its context, as you can see, it's immediately next to the giant overpass crosstown, where originally there were adjacent structures next to it. Out of seeing the side elevation. At this point, that is the most prominent elevation. Just about everybody who comes to Charleston, drives on King Street, and comes around and takes a look at that wall. So it's also happens to be, this is sort of going to be one of the entry points and parking for the low line park going under everything. It's going to be right here. So it becomes a prominent pedestrian driving, a really strong visual experience in the town today. Leading up to some proposed compositional, some windows and reworking of that facade to try to give it more of a presentable face as it's so visible right now. Slide. Yeah, some of the same slides kind of showing the addition. Text. That slide in the upper middle shows what was converted to this feed shop. I guess we can't figure out exactly when that happened, but it appears that a lot of the sort of things that happened to the building with the concrete work, and that we believe the addition may have been done at the same time, just sort of all done without sensitivity. Here's the existing proposing to chop off to remove the back wing, consolidate it back into the original historic footprint. It had been divided up to lower level and upper level with this feed shop at the bottom and the offices above. The bedroom units below, bedroom units up with an exterior stair added to the back. Because the piazza addition is there, the idea is to actually utilize it, and intentional work to it. And I'm showing the conceptual submittal alongside the new submittal. In this case, the front elevation is more or less unchanged. There's the existing condition of the piazza side, the south side. You'll notice there's sort of 4 bays, and then there's a little sliver of a bay, and then there's the upper addition. And then the columns currently, there's not a column underneath the corner of the upper addition. So on the upper, the conceptual submittal, I started out by keeping the columns intact while rebuilding and recreating the piazza, getting rid of the concrete elements and bringing back the piazza, but ultimately just putting some new columns under the upper infield bay and giving it into a porch. Apparently, the staff were comments from the first round were that the larger bays, the tight bay, just compositionally was more cohesive. Perhaps restudy the bays. So what I'm showing on the lower, maybe zooming in, zooming in on the bottom. What I've ended up doing, ironically, it works out very well with the illustration to rework the columns to such as just have 5 bays, door in the middle, and then the next 2 bays end up being the field piazza. So while yes, we're technically shifting the columns from what's originally there, the whole thing I think comes together nicely and compositionally, and the feeling more intentional and feeling more resolved and nice. So that if the previous version versus this version, it's an attempt to respond to the previous comments, that more gracious. And again, you can see here the effect of not having the rear addition to really consolidates the footprint. Let's see, next slide. Here. Like same previous versions. So here's the current condition of the north side, again with the windows in the condition that they are, the addition shown. In the conceptual submittal above, we kind of bring in, from this to rear tracings and windows. It also helps with egress windows for bedrooms on the inside. But the comment was that it's still a little hodgepodge and these little transom windows are not helping. So the idea was to really try to simplify, streamline the composition. You can zoom in on the bottom right. Again, it was a privacy side originally. Things have drastically changed with the crosstown. This all of a sudden becomes a very prominent base that just about everybody sees when they come to Charleston. So this opportunity to work on it to make it better. Probably operable shutters and really kind of bring it back. Showing a few really storing the piazza, not mentioned the monastery, bringing back, entry piazza door, sort of modeled after piazza entry that surrounds and nearby the facilities, and bring it back. Bringing it back to its original glory, which is to be
Do my fellow board members have any questions for the applicant on either the demolition or the preliminary?
On the drawing, there's no indication of they're standing, the turn roof, the existing turn roof. Is your intent to keep that roof?
That's a good question. Fit the roof closely at the addition to see that there's underlaying and there's like a fabric like material that's in bad shape. I believe if it could be restored and painted, we would try to keep it as is. It seems like it's been maybe painted.
It's looking at the photos. I think the back addition, whenever all those changes were made, and that back addition roof I think is a 5V. It's been hydrostop Sealaflex probably more than once, but from the line of demarcation between the addition and the main house, that 5V roof extends over onto the main house roof, which means that some of the main house roof, it was either put on over it or some of it was taken off on the original turn roof. It's problematic to extend that. It can be done, but extending that turn roof then over the rest of the original house is it's going to take some thought. If it's under there, it's going to be full of holes because the roof that put over it was 5B. And so I'm just wondering if you had thought about that process.
I guess the general position is it can be saved. It's the preference of position to save. Obviously, if it needed to be replaced or patched through, bring it back to things and print material. So really, that needs a little more investigation.
I had a question. The parcel to the north, is that considered a public right of way at this point?
So that's a very good question. It's apparently there's like an easement for the AT&T tower, I think, and then it goes to the right of way. I was asking the same question. What's maybe allowed in the house? The GIS actually says it's unbuildable. So easement to the utility behind. It's unbuildable. It's not apparently not.
Just to review with Ken, building inspections.
Right.
Also, I guess, just verifying, you are proposing to replace the round columns with square columns, correct? That's what I'm seeing on the plans.
The idea is to bring them, to replace with repair or as they are.
In elevation, they kind of look
I'm not sure.
round.
Yeah, I was just looking at the plans.
Plan notes.
Yeah, they're square on the plans. And I was wondering, because I was thinking about how the wall of the existing addition is, are you proposed to keep that wall plane? Because it appears coplanar with the outer edge of the columns now. Now you're showing columns applied like a pilaster detail. I didn't know how far set back in that wall plane would be. Is it? It's a
Okay,
detail.
I'm wondering if I'm just missing the graphic error on the drawings. If you zoom in on the bottom left, they're round, they're gonna be round, for sure. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
they are. I mean,
They're round on your as-built and then they're
Yes,
square on
yes.
your proposed.
Okay. That is
To be round. Yeah.
really, the upstairs, they're there, and they should really be used. On the bottom, they've all been chopped off. Yeah, at the infield condition. The condition.
So that wall plane will be pushed back
Right.
from what it is now.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Do we have anyone speaking from the public? And we had no written public comment. Frankie, we have city staff comments and recommendations on agenda items 6 and 7.
For the demo request, we have a couple observations. Structural report unfortunately was not received in time for posting to the image overview. We didn't get it today, so I couldn't provide it in the slide. Staff research did confirm that the addition was built between 1902 and 1928. And then for comments, the addition is historic and could potentially be over 100 years of age. While exterior modifications have been made, the addition does retain its form. Our staff recommendation is denial of demolition. We go ahead and do conceptual. Number 7 as well.
Go ahead and you'll be able to respond in the period you have after she reads that.
For that, we just had the observation that the previous comments have been addressed. The recommendation was preliminary approval was final with staff.
And now, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the city staff comments and recommendations on either item?
Yeah, interestingly, we recently come across the 1944 standard. Previously, we didn't even have that. I couldn't find that, but we back down to 1944. I was not aware of or haven't found. Definitely wasn't aware of the standard.
I'm not sure if it's available online anywhere. We actually have a microfilm version of it.
Gotcha.
But it's not been digitized or anything, so we had to go borrow here.
Yes, I guess of all these sort of various factors, condition, deterioration, compositional, aesthetic, density improvement, really in many ways. It appears that it was either haphazardly done or not done in a quality way. Quality to the original structure. All those factors going together in the structural report now, bringing it back to its.
Thank you. And I assume you didn't have anything with respect to the staff recommendation on the conceptual approval? I mean, it's even preliminary approval.
Should I address that also? I guess, yeah, I guess it was just
The staff recommendation there was preliminary and approval. You're always welcome to respond. I assume not. No public comment, there was nothing submitted in writing, so.
We did, even before the conceptual submittal, talk both with preservation and Southern Charleston Foundation, and the other. At the time, they said, with the information we had at the time, both, I guess off record, but in our conversations, that they would be, in favor of. They liked the other, and I followed up today with both groups, sending the structural report. We got back and said, they don't have any comments they want to speak to.
Thank you. Public comment and the applicant's presentation is closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote. So we'll first address the demolition request.
Ask a question from Mr. Frankie, since the structural report came in, so that we're not allowed to consider that.
We can't add it to the image overview because that has to be posted 5 days ahead of time.
Okay.
So, he's able to provide you with the information, I just couldn't put it online.
It is. We did it.
It's Anthony Austin.
He's welcome to present at the meeting any information.
I'll start out on this, I think I was one of the leading forces.
That was the meeting, was just the three of us.
And so there was the three of us. I was questioning whether or not the addition was closer in age to the 1902 than the 1944 that we had at the time. That was partially based upon the existence of a segmented standing seam metal roof on the addition, which typically came earlier than the full panel standing seam turn metal. So that was just that was sort of a red flag to me that the building might be older than what we all thought it might be, and that a structural report might be in order for it. I'm not saying that the addition contributes greatly to the overall building, or if it would even exist, but I felt like it needed consideration. The building, I mean, the addition, we're talking about it could possibly impact the addition. So I just didn't want it to be taken lightly, but I would be interested in hearing what the board members have to say.
That was my concern as well, the meeting that the addition might likely be older than 1944, and clearly it is. I mean, it's post 1902, so it was built sometime, apparently, additional research heard about to 1928. So, it is nearly 100 years old, close to it. I'm still not, in its current condition, I'm not sure how much it actually contributes to the structure in its current condition. It's been obviously heavily altered in one side of it's kind of single level, which you put on probably in the 60s, which is the 70s, and the roof of that portion, and actually intruding into the original body of the house is 5 feet. Would be uncommon like this in the early 1900s, I think. See it on a barn, but probably not on a house. My only other comment about this, I find these drawings sparse for preliminary. No notes, there's very little detail. There's some detail on the porch, which is, I think, quite adequate, but they're quite sparse. There are no notes. There's nothing on the drawings about how a lot of the structure is going to be treated other than its appearance is going to be obviously greatly improved. And I appreciate that. Maybe the structure is a big step. And I don't have serious comments about the what's proposed for the rest of the building. But I think the drawings are a little sparse.
And remember, we're gonna vote on demolition first, so.
Regarding the demolition portion, I know you said that in its current condition, it's not really defining the character of the building. I might even go so far as to say when it was first put on there, I don't think it's something that if we had reviewed it, we would have said that's great, just extrude the roof line and, you know, not acknowledge any addition at all. And that's not something I take lightly because clearly it's historic and old, but like you said, I don't think it would be missed, that piece.
I agree with my fellow board members on the demolition. I think it's the location, not only the location at the rear, but it's also the design. I agree. I don't think that it contributes to the rest of the structure. So this is, I appreciate though that we had requested last time for some additional research, so we don't take this decision lightly, because I think if someone had said, oh, you're going to approve demolition of an almost 120-year-old, even 100-year-old structure, my gut reaction is, what is going on? That would there needs to be some special circumstances in here. I think for me it is the location, but it does not contribute.
I mean, like I said earlier, I don't think it will be missed. I was questioning it more or less because it appeared to be much older than what it was being.
Do we have a motion? It sounds like we've got some consensus here. Unless Bill, do you have anything to add?
Really?
I'll make a motion for approval of demolition. I'm satisfied with the structural report.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for denial of demolition. Approval of demolition. I'm just reading. And motion to vote. Bill Heed,
Yeah, in favor.
Bill Moore,
Yeah, in favor.
Bill Turner,
Yeah.
Julia.
In favor.
Chair votes the majority and the motion passes unanimously. All right, now on the request for preliminary. The board has a question. Fillmore, did you have a question for the applicant? Unfortunately, the presentation is closed. So.
Just to clear. Information would need to be on drawings, certainly for final approval. A lot of information. Final approval that is not there now. I'd like to know what the plans are for the roof. You know, that seems to be completely up in the air. Clearly, there's going to be, I don't think there's any call for window replacement, so I'm assuming there's going to be window repair. But none of that is on the drawing. So if I'm going to assume from the drawings that all the windows are going to be saved, but I really don't know what the plan for the windows is. If there might be notes on the drawings. So I think that's.
My recollection of the last meeting is they were going to preserve all the windows, but you're right, that needs to be.
It's just conceptual an issue.
Yeah, I agree. That was one of the comments that I wanted to mention as well. I'm seeing into details, and I'm seeing none of the site details which were asked for. There's we need pavement details, like steps, what you do with side steps. Right now, the side steps are leading nowhere. Those sort of things need to be worked out, should be worked out before preliminary level. I agree with my colleague here that these are more in line with the conceptual.
Yeah, I would just say a big help with these sort of outline sections is to go ahead and flesh in the actual profiles and materials. So basically make them real construction details. To really flesh out what's going on. I think that should probably be a requirement for every final. So let's be real construction details.
Unfortunately, Bill, would you have a question?
Some of it may be,
How do you guys feel about, it should come back then for review here? Kind of staff at that point, or if it should come back?
if you guys are comfortable with it, they can go to staff if they don't feel it's complete enough. If they feel it needs to come back to us, we can. We're okay with that. If it goes to staff for final, but if they deem it.
Conceptual with final review of staff.
Yeah.
I'm just looking. Yeah, those conceptual. Okay with that.
We have conceptual.
Yeah.
So,
They have consent.
I mean, pardon?
They have
You can
consent.
have a
Oh, they have to
deferral
support
with
that.
final, it could be deferral with final review by staff.
that's what we've done, we've done a few recently.
Deferral would finally be best time, is the question.
You guys could clarify whatever conditions, board conditions or whatever.
I would like to say though, I think the submittal has come great strides from the conceptual, and I think is right on track. I honestly do. We just need more information. And I'm fine with handing that out to staff.
Go back and make one comment, but just the north side, does any of you have any reservation about the north side fenestration not being north side banners anymore, you know, like assuming that the building department would allow that? Like if you look at the existing versus proposed.
Actually, I don't have a problem with it because there's not an intervening building that you can walk the woods, so they're just
Monolithic overpass pylons and
Like, alright, cool.
nastiness.
Do you want me to try? I'll make a motion for deferral with board conditions to clarify the proposed site plan and develop or add missing details. You can write them, is that okay?
Did you want to comment that the columns just need to make sure they're rounded?
Confirm retention of round columns and restudy location of piazza and fill wall between columns to allow full half column to be at least. Final review by staff?
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for a deferral with board conditions to clarify the proposed site plan and develop or add the missing details. Second, board comment to confirm retention of the round columns. And third, to restudy the location of the piazza and fill wall between columns. Do I have a second to Julie's motion?
I'm second.
Motion to vote. Bill Turner,
Yay in favor.
Bill Cooley,
Yay in favor.
Julia,
Yay in favor.
Bill Moore. Chair votes for the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, Okay, agenda item number 8 is 16 Murray Boulevard. Frankie, when you're ready, to give us the introduction and overview of the project, please.
Mary's requesting to elevate structure, develop PFE and provide parking under structure. It was not surveyed in Charleston circa 1997 in the Boulevard District. This is the property's location on Murray Boulevard. The context of Murray. Showing lack of structure. Turn it over to the applicant.
Good evening. On behalf of Chris and Susan McHugh, I'm David Fisher with Thompson Architects. Assuming I can figure out how to work this, push the green thing to go forward. Yep. Oh, okay, the arrow. Frankie, can you make that a little bit bigger, maybe, please?
Which one you want to know?
The Sanborn stuff over here. So the beauty of making a presentation to y'all is that you know where I'm talking about, what I'm talking about, and this is just kind of a formality, I think, in terms of the context. But 16 Murray Boulevard used to be bluff mud. Banks of the Ashley River were back in this general area here. And in 1985, when the house was built, it was put on pilings, concrete pilings that are 90 feet long to give adequate bearing for the house down to the Coop Marl. We came before the VAR, small. Oops, can you zoom back out? Sorry about that. Actually, these are, let me go through this really quick. 1985, 1986 house, not exactly one of its kind, but certainly unique in the context of the neighborhood down there. The house has some sort of rips on the traditional single house with porches on the sides. However, in this particular case, they were designed to be cutouts. When we came to the board last fall, we had the request to go ahead and infill the cutouts, which was approved, with staff being the guidance going forward. So we went ahead and we went through all the changes that we wanted to make. We got to the point where the pricing was done for the renovation, and the project came in at 50% over the value of the house, and subsequently, rather than ditch the project altogether, the McHughes said, what do? Well, we raised the house to comply with the current flood elevation standards, and that's what we're doing here. So nothing about the plan has changed from the previous application. The only thing that has changed is that we are now elevating the house up above design flood, including interstitial space for mechanical, accommodating the existing structure, and we're plus 3 feet above the existing finished floor level. In doing so, we had to make some alterations, particularly in how you get from the main entry at the first floor down to the street level, or to the site grade level. And this is it's kind of an example of, oh, sorry, getting too far ahead of myself. But in any event, we basically took the house and stretched it up. And in doing so, we had to come back with the foundation, which is currently all a perimeter masonry wall. Had to redesign the support of the house proper with block piers and breakaway panels. And some of that is reflected a little further on in the drawing. One thing that we did do, we gained enough head height under the house to explore the possibility of parking. And in doing so, we can pull the sorry. Find my site plan. Here we go. Currently, parking is back here on the site, and what we're going to do is utilize the understory of the house for parking, turn this into green space and a garden space for the lot owners. So that's one thing that would be a benefit from elevating the house. These are before and after. No changes to the plan again, with the exception of extending the existing stairs down to grade to accommodate the elevation change. No change there, no change there. So before we were down here, now we're up there. And here's where we see the masonry appears. And the infill breakaway, we're still kind of looking at how that's going to work out. We're thinking that maybe we would have like a Jacob's ladder type of installation where we could run some plant material up to soften the transition between the front of the house, step down to the garden, step down to the sidewalk, step down to the very boulevard. So, again, on this side, you see the expression of the piers, the infill panels. Nothing above here has changed from the past. It's all just elevated. While we're working on the house, there were some decisions made in the original detailing that haven't held up very well in the course of time. And we want to remedy those by cleaning up some of the conditions that existed in the transition between the edge of the porch and the porch fascia. Right now, there's this sort of clunky curve-like thing with scuppers in it. The porches are some sort of hydrostop material. And we want to come back and we want to put in some more elegant railings and put in a nicer porch floor material. Looking at some sort of tropical hardwood. But in that, I think it's going to crisp up the street side elevation and the north side elevation on Battery Place. Really sort of make this house a little bit sort of more elegant than its current iteration. These are some images that are shown that give you an indication of what we're doing with these. We've infilled these corners again. That was all granted approval. Instead of these corner elements come down and sit on piers. Again, it's an attempt to sort of take the existing expression and attenuate it to sort of maintain that theme, but compensate for the 3 feet additional height required. The landscaping and whatnot is to be determined. This is just conceptual approval that we're asking for today. So I think that's about it. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the applicant?
Changed regarding the fenestration at the little infill corner porches. Was it always this much? It was glass block before?
Yes.
Nothing's changed? Okay.
Yes. And we actually erected a glass block panel and staff came by.
Okay.
So,
And just to really clarify the flood zone information, you're BE 12 and you are required to go up a foot above that.
And then we've added 2 feet for, actually it's approximately 2 feet for mechanical and then 16 inches for the existing floor rating. So we're giving ourselves enough room that we only want to do this once. And I think it's if there's any questions about how it's meant to be elevated, Rick Rockwell is here to address that.
this is in compliance with FEMA.
So it is BFE plus,
Just one, because
It's
it's
BFE
existing.
plus one to DFE, but the discretion on our part is to get the mechanical of that in the freeboard and then use the existing depth of the structure above the mechanical. So we're going up higher than we need to, but for the right reasons, I think.
How deep begins your floor structure, first floor
It's
platform?
approximately 16 inches. It's been modified over the years. It's been stiffened, but it's basically an open web 2x4 truss, and then they've come back over the years and sistered 2x6s on either side of the bottom core. But 16 inches.
16-inch truss.
Yeah.
And then all your mechanicals are hung below that.
Yes, sir.
But he's talking about, because that's where the existing mechanicals are. Did I hear you right?
There is conditioning below and there's conditioning above. And we're going to maintain the conditioning below and conditioning above, but we're pushing it all up and making sure that the ductwork is within. We've got, that's again, we're looking at 2 feet for strapping and mechanical ductwork and plumbing and things of that nature, just to get it up above the design floor.
And just to be clear then, you're replacing the existing mechanical.
Oh, yes. You know, it might turn out to be less when it's all said and done, but this is the go big.
Appreciate your candor.
I want to know what wonky is. Is that the name? Look up dictionary of architectural terms.
Perfect dictionary slang. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone speaking from the public?
A scheduled to review the application to elevate the home at 16 Murray Boulevard, 2.8 feet above DFB and provide parking under the structure. We have no objection to elevating the structure in this flood-prone area of the city. However, there are elevation design guidelines adopted in 2019 state that buildings should not be moved, made additions, parking, etc. I believe it is important to consistently follow the adopted elevation design guidelines. Off-street parking for this house is already available on the site. We do not think an exception is specified at the site to accommodate parking under the elevation structure. We respectfully recommend denial of the request to elevate 60 Murray above the required depth. We do not affect other aspects of the project.
Anyone else speaking? Right, for written comments, we had a position statement from Preservation Society submitted. Dear board members, the PSC previously opposed a request to infill a portion of this property, and the current proposal to incorporate glass block infill goes against the board's direction to keep any enclosure as transparent as possible to respect the design intent. We are not supportive of this portion of the application, nor the request to elevate above DFE to accommodate parking for the BAR's design guidelines for elevating historic buildings, intended to ensure elevations are undertaken as sensitively as possible to maintain the building's relationship with the streetscape. Thank you for considering our position in this matter. That is all of the public comment that we have. Frank, you can give us any staff comments and recommendations, please.
I just had observations that the proposal is raising the structure above the FEMA requirement, and as April stated, in this part of my comment, I apologize. your guidelines on elevating, position to raising structures for garages. And also per those elevation guidelines, garage doors on front elevations are prohibited. So staff recommendation is denial of the additional height of elevation to it being raised up to FEMA requirements.
Thank you, Frank. Did the applicant want to respond to or clarify anything raised during public comment or the city staff comments and recommendations?
Yeah, I don't understand the, so all we're sort of constrained by just going to design flood elevation? Is that what you're saying? And then, so what do you do with the mechanical? Yeah, what do you do with all the stuff that
I mean, typically, the way we would look at it is you need to accommodate them in other ways, ductless systems or whatever. That's how we would look at it typically. I'm not
Right.
saying that's how we'll look at it in your case, but that's the typical approach, is that it doesn't matter to us. You need to figure out your ductwork some other way, and we don't care about parking, that sort of thing. It's like the policy is 2 DFE is sort of encouraged and accepted, but beyond that is not. That's the policy.
So you're not saying that we can't go above the FE?
Kind of that's what the policy says, but I think if we just get to the point where we discuss this particular application, there might be.
Okay, all right.
Right, public comment, the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
So we're trying to figure out exactly where which the request is trying to go to. So if this were a new construction, and this is a 1980s building, it's not a historic structure, and I tend to think there's a little more leeway there, but I think that if this were building, the structure were being built now, it would be +2. This request is for,
2.8.
I still wasn't quite sure how much more above.
16, so
It's the
CID +2.
It's the proposed, it's the theoretical. Am I allowed to talk?
I'm asking.
yes, if you could explain.
Okay.
Exactly
so
where we are.
what we're doing is we're edging on the greater side for insulated ductwork running underneath the existing structure. So we're actually taking design flood, adding space to get the ductwork above design flood, and then having the existing floor structure. So
2.8 feet
it's
extra.
yeah.
And we normally,
No,
From finish grade to the bottom of the floor joist system, existing 16 inches up. From a finish grade to the bottom of the first floor joist.
In the proposal, I think it's 7 and change feet, 8 feet maybe, at most.
That intense focus for parking.
And again, using the understory for parking is sort of a bonus. If there's the objection about the location of the garage door being the front of the house as it faces Battery Place as opposed to Murray Boulevard, that's okay. I mean, we can deal with that. But I think the biggest concern here is the client's desire to have this house comply with FEMA so that in the worst case scenario, they're dry above the freeboard. And, it's currently conditioned from below. And that's just, we're just pushing it all up out of the water.
So the thing that, I mean, this is deceptively complex, philosophically, structurally, all that. But where I think we're coming from and where our policy statement and where the ordinance comes from is trying to protect historic, conditions, historic streetscapes to the greatest extent possible while still fully complying with what FEMA requires. In fact, it's not that long ago that they required anything. You know, if you went to FEMA's BFE, that was all you had to do in Charleston until recently, and now it's 1 extra foot for existing and 2 extra feet for new construction. And so, you know, if we just adopted your argument, then it seems like that would open the door for anyone with any house at any age to come in and say, well, we just like to go up higher because we want ductwork under the house and because we want, you know, deeper floor system, et cetera. And that is kind of what we're hoping to avoid and hoping to tamp down, because that would severely affect streetscapes, you know, more than what is required by FEMA. But in this case, this is not a historic house. To me, it's kind of a reuse, recycle situation. And it's a 3-story height zone. So to me, there is, like you're saying, like a lot of latitude or longitude, as it were, to work through this in this particular case without even thinking about your ductwork or any of those arguments that you propose. So
There's one more factor in play here, okay? This is a visa, okay? So it's to the lowest horizontal structural member. So my question is, how
it's existing, it's just still 1 foot above.
we're raising it
If it were
though
new.
to the requirement is to the lowest horizontal structural member in a visa.
Not for an existing structure. Only for new, which I'm kind of wanting to factor that stuff in.
I was thinking to factor that in, because if it
Yeah.
was to be truly code compliant in this flood zone it's located, that would be a factor. So how is the structure? It's a 16-inch deep structure. Are there intermediate girders? Is it a drop girder system, or is it a flush girder system? Are there any girders or
Currently,
headers or
it's
what?
spanning from block wall to block wall.
It's a clear span.
What we're gonna have to do is to minimize the lift, we're gonna have to come in, build the piers, install LVLs and side bear the existing floor framing on the side of the LVLs, because we want to get all that stuff up as high as possible.
Okay, so you're gonna hang all your, or ledger all of your
Correct.
trusses some way.
Correct.
Onto a rim of structural LVLs.
Correct. So if you consider that to be one big diaphragm,
Well, I would say if you were dropped, I might have seen a little bit of leeway potentially in the fact that it is a V zone. Classically, it would be the bottom of the horizontal structural member. Then we might only be talking about inches. You know
Still
what I'm saying?
1.8 feet.
I mean-
Still 1.8 feet extra.
I'll defer to the contractor's experience on what's the best way to lift the house, whether you just put the whole thing up and on your framing on the underside and top bear the floor joists, or side bear. There's a little bit of kind of vapor here because we don't really know how big the ducts are gonna be. We're not 100% sure how we're gonna, once this whole operation starts, we could uncover a whole multitude of things that we didn't expect. But if we go big for trying to get everything out of the flood in dry land, in dry air, we can come back and manipulate those numbers so that instead of 2'3", it might be, 1'10" or anything. We ran some numbers. We said this looks good. It should comply. We should be able to do everything that we're doing. We need to do without drastically altering the mechanical systems, et cetera. But
Yeah.
if we top bear the joists, it's the house is probably only going to get higher. So
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Things I would say, just kind of cutting to the chase from a VAR perspective. I think it might have been really helpful to see a thoughtful landscape and grading plan, typically for elevations, it's really helpful to see how you might mitigate that differential between the sidewalk and the proposed front floor and first floor. But, and then the other is, personally speaking, because it's not historic, because it's a 3-story height district in a V zone, I am really comfortable with adding some to the design flood elevation for an existing house. I think I might like to see it mitigated a little from the go big, just a little, because I don't like accommodating ductwork. I don't want to take that into account. You could accommodate that with mini splits elsewhere. Yeah.
High pressure system.
Sure. So, but I guess it's just maybe for me, like determining what little bit of mitigation would make it feel right. That's not.
As far as the following, the policy statement on raising structures, I'm sure, I wasn't around when those were developed, I've already gone. I'm sure they were really designed more for historic structures. I think 99% of the time, applying those to the historic structure. And because of this is from the 1980s era, I think you almost look at it as a construction. As far as, parking underneath it, once again, that's one that wants to vary from policy statements because it's a very slippery slope. But in this case, the house across Battery Point has parking underneath. If it has to be raised to a certain point, and you can happen to fit parking underneath there, and the design nature of the house, and that the parking would be coming off the side street, and then we would also be getting surface parking. I'm willing to give some leeway on parking underneath as well.
I would think too, there are probably several devices to lower the height and still accomplish the goals. Potentially maybe looking into a different mechanical system that probably for the most part could be routed within the depth of the 16-inch trusses, be that a high pressure system or something like that. That would be a big help. Also potentially trying to install the lowest overhead possible in a serviceable garage. There are doors now, if you're proposing a swing door type access into the garage, that would be a lot better from the headroom perspective rather than an overhead track system or something like that. So I would like to think that there may be diagrams that could be available to sort of show any and all efforts to lower the house as much as possible. I mean, I appreciate the approach you had to take, which is to just get a number in there and maybe add a few inches to make sure that you're reaching that point. But I think maybe this application, given the standards, I think I would be willing to entertain some, say, height above a little higher than what our standard says. Again, given the fact that it's a newer home and it isn't in a V zone, a pretty intense situation. But what I'd like to see is some degree of diagrammatic remedying of that. Might be an alternate mechanical system, and it might be also, you figuring out how to obviously provide your separation rating, but then a lower maybe garage dooring scenario and all that. If you could come up with that and then should depict to us the lowest level that you feel you could go, I would entertain that level, but I believe it would be a bit lower than what you're showing here. So I would like to see if maybe it would be possible to defer this to give you a chance to present that scenario, and then we could entertain lowering to that level.
And the landscape grading.
There are a lot of ways to do it.
Yeah.
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 We all know that. A little bit of sort of tearing out the existing system and go into a multi-city style system, and but probably incorporating similar to what the house has now, but with a little bit of thoughtful work with ductwork, particularly if you're starting out with an open web floor unit system, it gives you
Exactly.
more opportunities. So I would be comfortable if it came down closer to +2, because in essence what that means is that's looking at the fact that it's a 1980s building and that's the standard now. It's not a historic structure. But, you know, honestly, I think those extra inches are to make it comfortable in the garage.
Yeah.
And there are ways to deal with that and still stick within higher requirements.
Exactly.
And still get some part of it.
Exactly, but I think rather than just sort of throw inches at the wall, I think maybe, again, you could provide diagrammatic, sections that show how high or low you can make everything account for your finished thicknesses and your garage scenario and all that kind of stuff. Definitely be willing to look at those numbers. So I'll, go ahead.
I was supposed to say, I would actually prefer not to see a diagram of ductwork, because I don't want that to
No,
become
I
a
don't want a ductwork
justification.
diagram. I just want to see a diagram being a section of how low everything can go. Right? Because
Without ductwork, or?
well, a consideration, if the applicant can consider a mechanical system in discussions with the builder, might find that there are duct systems that will fit within the 16-inch truss system. And if they can find routing for that duct that works, I would think they could find that. I would just, all I'm saying is, I would entertain higher than our usual standard, but I would like to see a diagram that illustrates how low they could meet us so that we could accomplish that number. Right? And I think to properly do that, you're going to have to diagram all your finishes and everything, your structural elements and all of that to depict where you serviceably need to be.
Right, and I mean, that just includes the structure and not ductwork, and that makes sense to me. But I would personally probably be open to more height than the absolute minimum necessary, is all I'm saying. So I don't know, I just don't want to start even thinking about ductwork, because then a Freedman's Cottage comes in and they want to elevate extra for ductwork under the house, and we just don't do that. So maybe maybe it's deferred to reduce the proposed height. A minimum
Serviceably
of,
possible.
yes,
That's what
minimum
I'm
of
getting at.
1 foot. And
We can figure it out.
and provide a site plan with proposed grading and landscape.
Is that a motion?
Yes, that was.
Okay. Motion on the floor for a deferral to reduce the proposed height to a minimum of 1 foot.
By a minimum of 1 foot.
Sorry, what?
By a minimum of 1 foot.
Oh, that makes more sense basically. So by a minimum of 1 foot, and provide a site plan with proposed grading and landscaping. Do I have a second to Julie's motion?
I'll second.
A motion to a vote. Bill Turner,
Yeah.
Bill Huey,
So I want to qualify. So basically, we're just throwing a number out, lower it by at least a foot. Where you accomplish what you accomplished. I just didn't know if it could serviceably be even lower than that, but accepting a foot.
Yeah, just kind of throwing a number at it. I don't mind it being higher than it has to be because of all the mitigating factors here.
Mhm.
So, I mean, yes, the 1 foot is arbitrary. I'm not gonna lie. What's your vote, Bill?
I mean, I think it might be able to be a little lower than that, but everybody's okay with a foot. I'll
At least
go
a foot.
okay with it.
Julia,
Me in favor.
Belmar.
Yeah, in favor.
Chair votes to the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item number 9 is 1108 King Street. Frank, can you give us an overview.
Sorry, that was really hard.
All right, King Street is requesting conceptual approval for a mural. It is not surveyed in North Central, pre-1955 in the historic corridor. King Street. Then we're not showing the history of the structure.
My name's Margo, thanks for listening. My small business has been operating in Charleston since 2000. Our proud vendors at the Charleston City Market and the Charleston Farmers Market. We specialize in handmade crystal jewelry, incorporating local fossils, seashells, that kind of thing. We have a very colorful aesthetic. We love the symbolism of rainbows. We feel like they symbolize hope, inclusivity. We feel like our neighborhood already has a lot of existing murals that set the stage for something like this. Park and Grove is right around the corner. They have a nice one that reflects their business, as well as Home Team Barbecue is one around the corner. We're also right down the road from some colorful columns underneath the crosstown. And we would be 1 block from the Low Line, which, from what I understand reading about it, will also have decorative murals underneath. We have a very small facade. It's only about 10 feet wide, so this would not be a massive piece. As you can see sort of from this photo, we're connected to our neighbor at 1108B. That is a hair salon. They have some hand lettering on their window as well. Currently, we have our logo painted on there. I'm definitely looking to get it redone in addition to adding the mural. So the lettering is different than what's existing there now. The photo that was up is not the one that I emailed y'all. That one is actually from a couple of years ago before we moved in. We moved in July of 2021.
These photos,
That is,
these were just what staff pulled up of Google.
yeah, so that's about a couple years old.
This is the only one we found that you sent us.
I had emailed y'all for, like a little backed up of current photos.
This is the only one that we were able to find in the email.
Well, I mean, it looks the same as the one from Google Maps, you know, just with the existing logo. Did our tag so people can find us on social media above the door because we felt that that was a gap that needed to be filled, and it's a great way of connecting with. We just wanted something big and bold and fun and bright and uplifting. We have a purple planter that is in the front of our shop. That is on the left-hand side if you're facing the business. That has colorful flowers growing around it. We have those growing up the facade, and those will be framing the window a little bit as well. Kind of break up the design a little bit and add a three-dimensional element to it. Okay, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your consideration. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Any questions for the applicant? So the mural and the signage that are there now,
So the mural that's there now, I just am unhappy with. It's actually not a mural. It was approved as a sign as part of our logo.
I ended up having a situation where I had to finish it myself because the person I had hired was not able to complete it. I feel that this will be much more clean, much more professional looking. We have our muralist with us today. If you have any questions for him, he just completed a beautiful project on James Island at the new Hurriali Gardens there. And so, yeah, what's there now is just peachy keen crystals, art jewelry. It has a flower framing around it, like a flower vine drawn on the building. It has like a flower kind of drawn around the outside of it. But I had, like I said, I had to finish it myself, and I don't have the mural expertise, so it was sort of a stressful, rushed thing. And now that I have the time and energy to revisit this, I would just have a nice, clean, bright, you know, something that you're driving by and you're like, what's that? I gotta go in there.
Any other questions?
Frankly, would this not be considered two separate applications, a sign application and a mural application?
It's actually too large to be considered under a sign, because it would have to be 10% of the occupied space.
But I know in the past, it was, a mural stops being a mural when you put the sign, but it then becomes a sign, so I don't know how you guys are.
We've had some conflicting results with it. This is actually too big to be a sign. It would have to be reduced, and it also has extraneous information that we wouldn't approve as a sign. So with what's being proposed right now, we just combined it and brought it before you as a mural. I actually can't find any approvals for the previous one. All I can find is an email saying that it would have to go to the board, but I can't find that it did.
This one was not approved as a mural, it was just approved as a logo, like just a letter.
Right, I can't find an approval for that. I can only find an email saying that that would have to go to the board as a mural as well because it's too large.
Any other questions? Ms. Keen? All right, is there any public comment? Oh, go ahead.
Our purple lettering up on the Peachy King logo, so that will kind of tie it in.
Okay, thank you. There's no one is speaking from the public. We had one public comment by, I'm going to, Zach Vasidi at 59 Cypress Street. His comment was, the city should support the creation of art and artistic freedom. A mural on this private building would bring more culture and nuance to the area. Public comment. Frankie, if you'll give us city staff comments and recommendations, please.
So as I was saying, we had a note that we can't find it for previous approval. So kind of addressing Bill's comment, we broke it into looking at this two ways. One, that the text should be reduced to less than 10% of the facade, but that has to be the facade of the occupied space, not the building as a whole. So if the store is only on the first floor, we can only look at the square footage of that frontage. And then if the text is reduced, we can look at it that the lettering as signage and the mosaic separately as artwork. But then we also had the comment to remove extraneous information above the door. So our recommendation is denial as submitted. Those things would just need to be addressed. And mostly it's that the text is too large and removing that extra information.
Thank you, Frankie. And Ms. Keen, that's not the decision of this board yet, just to let you know, we still have to debate, but did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comments or the city staff comments and recommendations?
First of all, that public comment is so sweet. I don't know that person, so I'm like flattered that they went on there. Second of all, I see what y'all are saying about that, the lettering being large. We had initially designed this concept with nothing above the door at all. It just didn't feel right. We went back and forth about it. It didn't look right. We feel that our handles are a modern way of helping people connect with us and look up what we offer and what we're all about. We also want to point out that the visibility of the handles above the door, you're riding up King Street away from Marion Square area, is not really visible. The facade of the building is angled in a way that is minimally visible. Unless you're standing directly across from it, you see it. And then as you go by, you start to see it. But the other portion of it is what's primarily visible. Because of the angle of the building, if you're coming from the other direction, you actually don't see it at all.
Public comment and the applicant's presentation is closed, so we'll move into board discussion and a vote.
Frankie, now the 10%, that's in the code, correct?
That's for a facade sign,
Yeah,
yes.
that's-
That is the zoning
All right,
requirement.
so to me, that's off the table. You have to comply with the 10% that's in the code. And the extraneous information, that's in the policy statement, correct?
Yes, sir, that is in the general sign policy and the King Street signage policy.
So I agree that the extraneous information should come up. Well, as far as the mural itself, it's paint, it's just paint. I think it's cute, you know, but it's totally reversible. If someone else wants to change it, they can change it. It's just paint.
Fun. And I think it will, like you said, beckon people, even if the signage lettering gets smaller, to comply with the ordinance. I have no problem with the mural, and I just will assume that signage will get worked out as required. That's good? Yeah.
Mural on a sign.
Right. And maybe at some point you could get a light over the door or something like that to fill in that little space. I'll just make a motion to that effect, if that's okay. For approval of the mural and deferral of signage to be coordinated with staff to comply with city requirements.
Okay.
That's staff comment.
On the floor.
Right,
Just the extraneous information. That's
Sure.
also another.
Sure, yeah, you can, all staff comments are good.
So approval of the mural and deferral of the signage with staff comments to be coordinated with staff to confirm compliance. Is there a second to Julia's motion?
Yeah.
For the motion to a vote, Bill Turner,
Yay in favor.
Belmore,
Yeah, in favor.
Julia, in favor,
Yeah.
chair votes the majority, and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Gates.
So do I come in for another meeting then for the sign, or I just?
Nope, just submit to your permit. You'll just submit revised drawings to your permit to reduce the size of the text and to remove the social media handles.
We are going to take a 10-minute break.
Sorry.
It's so quick.
Are you next?
Next, if you'll.
If y'all wanna do one more, if everybody quick.
We do one more?
One more,
So that we go quickly, yeah.
This point.
do one more? Okay, we'll do one more. Okay, agenda item number 10, I'm holding you. Agenda item number 10, 257A Rutledge Avenue. Frank, can you give us an introduction and overview, please?
257A Rutledge is requesting to change roof material from approved standing seam to 5B. The existing structure is a category 4 in Canberra, Elliottboro, circa 1890 in the Old City District. This is the property's location on Rutledge. Existing site photo. Looking south on Rutledge. And we're not showing the original structure. we'll turn it over to the applicant.
Rebecca Harrison, I represent the owner, Courtney Wagner, and our architect is Julia O'Connor, who's been instrumental in designing this new construction building. As noted above, we have a approved set of plans that we're currently in the process of constructing. And what we would like to do is change from a standing seam metal roof to a 5B crimp. As you can see from the photos, this building is even though it's can be visible from the public right of way, it's not visible from the private right of way. You have to go onto this Wagner's property to actually view the roof. Because it's new construction, we just kind of feel that it's an appropriate roofing material option as opposed to the standing seam. And I'll let Julia speak on that as well.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add except just to reiterate, this is a fully new construction. This is a new building directly behind the historic building, and it's minimally visible, very, very small amount of visibility. So while you will be able to see that it's a metal roof, I don't know that you would be able to really note the difference in the style of the roof.
The original roof, I think, was going to be painted red.
It is red, yes.
Is that the plan for the 5B?
Yes.
Has it been installed, or is it you just want to change, or?
It was ordered by the contractor, delivered to the site. It has not been installed.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What's your lowest pitch on a house?
I'm sorry?
What's your lowest pitch?
Oh, that's a good question. The porch roof would be the lowest pitch, it's a 4.
Any other questions?
It's a 3, actually.
A 3?
Yeah.
So close.
I saw it. I didn't see it on the previous stats either.
Thank you. Do we have anyone speaking from the public? Okay, we had one comment submitted by Preservation Society. Dear board members, the Preservation Society is not supportive of this request, as 5B is not a high-quality material compatible with the historic district. Standing seam metal roofs are consistently considered appropriate for new construction, and the standards should be upheld here. Thank you for considering our position in this matter. That is all of the public comment. Frankie, could you give us city staff comments and recommendations, please?
Okay, some information for the board. The project received staff approval July last year. And in April of this year, we received a complaint from a neighbor, and enforcement went out for a site inspection. And the 5B instead of the standing seam. And then we just had the comment that the material is a downgrade from the previous approved standing seam, so we are recommending denial.
Want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment or the city staff comments and recommendations?
So, with regards to the enforcement at site, we did remove it as noted on there. My understanding was that the contractor had a conversation at staff level about 5B, but that change was not within their, it's not approved, well, not necessarily approved, but wasn't transmitted. And so we don't, because it's new construction, we've seen, I think there's multiple examples of 5B from asphalt shingle roofs in the historic district. So I don't think that is a downgrade of material on this particular location. It's a secondary house that's set back from the main house, and it's necessary.
Thank you. All right, public comment and the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
Yes.
This were coming in now,
What my question?
would we be considering 5B on this? Actually, if I don't know that I don't have anything against 5B. I think it's perfectly appropriate on certain buildings, but on this one, I'm more concerned about the detailing. How are you gonna say detail these hip roofs on the dormers?
Use returns.
You can't really do that. I've never seen it done well without clunky looking ridges on it, so. To approve a different roof material, I would much rather have, just, architectural shingles than have a 5B.
I agree with Bill on that. It's definitely a downgrade for standing seam, and looking at this is a very attractive building, and it's got some nice details. I think that trying to shoehorn 5B into those details is going to create problems. I don't see the outcome of trying to do that looking the way we have thought this roof would look. Beyond that, I'll continue to say that a 5B roof is a great roof for a barn. Does not belong over heated and cool space, even though it is absolutely done all the time. It's not a good roof.
I guess I should have asked too, this is a 5E with the exposed fasteners, right? Yeah, basically gasketed fasteners. So all up and down these ridges, you're gonna see fasteners. So just something else to keep in mind. It's definitely not the same roof.
Its appearance, if you've ever tried to unfold a ridge on a 5B.
So that you can't do that.
And I was gonna ask, because I assume that Julie's original intention was to have hand-coated ridges and hips and all that stuff. It's not necessarily, it wasn't called out on these drawings and details. Just pointing that out. But yeah, it would all be so much more beautiful and elegant if it did have proper standing seam and hand-coated ridges. And I think I agree with Bill Turner that if it's not gonna be that, then just asphalt shingles would be preferable to resolve those details. Yeah. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question.
Okay.
So if 5B prep is not appropriate, would you consider asphalt shingles as being
I mean, it's a little sad. It's a little sad, and I'm sure it helped the case for the previous application that they were proposing standing seam metal. I don't know. I wasn't here when this came through in this form. No?
It actually came through in 2021.
Remember, initially it was a different flavor building, and then it
was
evolved.
a duplex before.
Yeah. I don't know, if it wasn't controversial, then.
I mean, we have looked at shingles on new homes before, and I think Bill Turner, your point's like dead on. There's so many little areas like these dormers and things where by the time you cap and do it, it would just, I think it would destroy the aesthetics of the house altogether. Just trying to use a less expensive material, if you're gonna go to that, I would rather see it be asphalt shingles as well. At least you can keep it clean. Now, we haven't gotten a submittal for asphalt shingles, so I don't know what we do. Maybe we can defer it and then.
Staff could we could defer it to the board comment or condition.
I would just say denial of this and
Yeah,
ask staff.
but for expedition, if we said, what, something to the effect of that we would find asphalt shingles solution. Okay, and then give Frankie the authority to.
I mean, if they came in today, do application, we would probably approve.
Do you think procedurally, Frankie, is there something?
Well, see, typically,
if anything like this varies from what comes before the board, if it's a higher quality material, staff will approve it, but
Right.
something that is considered a lower quality, we would have to bring back.
Okay.
So we would have to do the same thing in particular.
Okay.
How about a motion, well, how about a motion for denial with the board comment that high quality asphalt shingle roofing would be acceptable in this case? We could do that, that would be
Is that a motion?
fine.
Sound like
Okay, well, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on how the board comment that high quality asphalt shingle roof would be acceptable, and I heard Bill Huey, the motion to a vote, Belmar,
Yea in favor.
Bill Turner,
Yeah.
Julia,
in favor.
Bill Huey,
Yea in favor.
two votes to the majority, and the motion passes
Nice
unanimously.
shingle, nice ones.
And now we are taking a break. We will reconvene at 7:44.
Oh, we're in coat. It does get a little cold in here, doesn't it?
Right, because it's in there. Very soft. Not.
Windows. What about the windows on this side?
Windows are up. Removing the stairs.
Moving the stairs is really what?
Yeah, there you go. Like, we don't- I know it's, there's like a gym.
I'll probably on it, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing it.
The only thing that was, was some shifting on the number, because they were presumably original. But it's gonna.
That's okay. David.
Very good.
He didn't, I knew he wouldn't be there.
Not good, it's surprising. Okay, so this is good.
1.8. And I give you back in. Luckily, I walked all the way around there and came back. I tried to finish it.
Yeah.
Buses were out front, I asked her if we had a communication. David and, she came out. Figured somebody else.
See, I thought I was next.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
For
Okay.
those studies. I think somewhat simple because
Got it.
it's based on that conversation.
Right.
I'm optimistic. I'll work with you. I hope.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Not yet, Jenny's,
Yeah.
Once they're ready to go. It's always Well, Anna Catherine was here, and then she left early. Like, her last night.
I guess technically they could defer. I think we should defer.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Agenda item number 11, 20 Bennett Street. Brandon, if you could give us an introduction and overview of the project, please.
And 20 Bennett Street is requesting conceptual approval for renovation and addition to the rear and to raise the existing house. It is a category 4 in Charleston Village, circa 1940, in the old historic district. This is the property's location on Bennett Street. Some existing site photos. Context of Bennett Street. Sanborn maps. And I will turn it over to the
At Workers Development Studio. We were here a couple of weeks ago presenting this project. We got deferred by the board to reevaluate a couple of things, so we won't spend too much time going into the overall project, but like Frank said, we are trying to raise the house a little bit up out of the floodplain. This area floods quite a bit, gets a whole lot of water on this property in particular. One of the issues we had prior, shown on some of the previous design, was that we need to raise the house about 30 inches, which wasn't per the guidance of the AR. We are raising it just at 1 foot above BFE. So that also allowed us to provide the front stair, as kind of as was discussed that day. We had just enough space to rotate it back that 90 degrees, come straight out to the sidewalk like it currently is. I think but it also allowed us to extend a nice detail to that rail, handrail down the step as well. Added about a 20-inch kind of small wall around the front yard area, just trying to decrease from street elevation the extra height that we're raising the finished floor, trying to bring that back. Other large issue that we talked about in the previous meeting, sliding at the crawl space screens, which we are now proposing a vertical wing. I mentioned the little retaining wall or wall around the front. We are doing a little bit of landscaping on that front elevation right there with that recess, some 36-inch shrubs to be selected, and then down the side where the Along the sidewall here, there are some existing shrubs blocking stucco on wood screen now. So we're gonna come back in with shrubs very similar, 4-foot tall shrubs, to help screen that a little bit further. We just don't want to block it too much, like I said, flood substantial, so we really want to allow as much water and airflow through that crawl space as possible. We also reduced the amount of gravel drive on the backside. The front part here is existing, the gate is existing, but on the backside, we minimize that as much as towards drive. I think that's everything from the previous. It update the rear railings a little bit. In the previous design, they were more like the front railings, a little bit more the newer construction, slightly more modern, to not detract from the historic house. We made the more Vista 2 levels. Just trying to simplify a little more. Stop there.
Are there any questions for the applicant?
It seems like but just if you'll humor me, at the back porch where on the northeast elevation it sort of looks like a porch, it's really just a stair, right? There's no
It's really just a stair with a little bit of a screen. It's, we looked at it with without. Did look at it without something, but we do want the stair to be covered to keep away. We needed to continue that those posts down to the ground, and it just seemed really blank without anything there. Really, there's posts that were, it just seemed out of place. So having that rail there just kind of helped to break that up a little bit.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Seeing on your site plan, how wide is your front? I see it skinning down in the back. How wide is the wider?
9 feet.
No, in front of the gate.
That's existing, and I think it's about what,
Okay. I think it would need to have it skinning down because it's going to be impossible to get something to grow in that little narrow spot.
yeah, there's about a foot and a half. Depending on what it's like. There are currently bush shrubs coming on there right there. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you. Do we have anyone speaking from the public? No, we have no written public comment. If you'll give us city staff comments and recommendations, please.
We just had observations that our previous comments have been addressed. We are recommending conceptual approval with final review.
Lucas, did you want to respond to or clarify anything?
That sounds great.
Thank you. Into the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
I think the reorientation of the front stairs works really well, and it's an awesome miracle that you had just enough space for them. I don't know if this needs to be incorporated into any motion, but you might want to consider iron railing, like inboard of those cheek walls rather than wood mounted on top of the cheek walls. I do think the back elevation is visible. I would love to see you consider just maybe structurally bracketing that cover over the stair and not having that kind of floating faux porch floor and rails going on back there. And that way you could also pull the end of that porch that's currently hanging beyond the back facade. You could pull that in so it'd be better resolved. Otherwise, I think it's Good?
It looks like on the front steps, the very top, I don't know if I call it a tread or not, but it looks like it's at the same level as the porch deck. Instead of just having your first riser tuck underneath it.
That's not that too, but I think that's just the cheek wall, not with the rails on top, and it looks like that, I think.
Okay, all right. Like Julia said, I think this has made some great strides, bringing the steps out towards the street has made a huge difference. And also introducing the coating wall. I'd like to see some more details for the site as this comes back to preliminary. I think the gravel is a good choice in this area actually because of the flooding, but it's going to need to be edged with something just to keep it looking neat. And anytime you have a gravel driveway, it's always a good idea to put a paved apron out on the sidewalk, just to keep it from tracking out in the street. So yeah, further develop the site plan and provide all of the necessary details for everything that's going on. Probably the section through the cooking wall, some details in the driveway, sidewalk, that sort of stuff. That's really all I have.
I agree with comments have been made. Julia said exactly the comments I was thinking, so I definitely agree with her points about the front railing, and the potential bracketing in support of that rear stair roof, and then definitely pulling that back behind the corner, that edge of the roof.
So how about a motion for conceptual, is this conceptual still, right? Conceptual approval with 3 board comments. 1, to clarify the site plan and hardscape elements. And 2, to change the front stair railing to iron inboard of the cheek wall. To eliminate the faux at the back and support the cover over the stairs with structural brackets. Shorten it so that it doesn't extend past the back elevation. I'm sorry, that was really a lot of words.
Excuse me?
No, that was like a Bill Ewing.
Site inspection for staff.
I just totally missed what you said, I'm sorry.
We have a motion on the floor, so not final review by staff, this needs to come back.
I think final review by staff would be fine.
Okay, so conceptual approval with 3 board comments to clarify the site plan and hardscape elements, to change the front door railing to iron inboard of the cheek wall.
As in its front stair.
Change the front stair railing to iron inboard of the cheek wall. Eliminate faux panel.
Faux piazza.
Oh gosh. Eliminate the faux piazza at the rear and consider structurally bracketing the covering over the stair and shorten it so that it does not extend beyond the back elevation. And final review by staff. Do I have a second? Motion to a vote, Fillmore,
In favor.
Phil,
In favor.
Julia,
In favor.
Bill Huey.
Yeah, fair.
Chair votes with the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item number 12 is 107 Trav Street. Frankie, could you give us an introduction and overview of the project when you are ready?
Trad is requesting to change existing stucco and frame siding. It is not surveyed in Charleston, circa 1873 in the Golden Historic District. This is the property's location on Trad Street. Existing site photo. Next up, Trad. Here's the property. Right over to the applicant.
Kate Campbell, with Common Architects. 107 Trout is a property that has 4 buildings on it. The historic building is to the rear. It's a kitchen house that you saw on the Sanborn map. The pink house that we're requesting to change from stucco to siding was built in the 1970s. We are working on this project with Artis Construction, and during the course of demolition on the interior, it was discovered that the exterior sheathing on the house, and it is just foam with stucco on the side. We had previously gotten staff approval to replace the 1/1 windows that have curved lines. So any fenestration modifications are obviously important to watch it. So with the existing soffit being thin and also not wanting to go back with an inappropriately thin stucco system that would have been a stow system or something like that, we discussed with the client and the contractor to propose to go back with sheathing and siding. It's not a historic house. We feel like that allows us to maintain the soffit of the eaves, a more appropriate water management system on this building. So the other modification is the existing flood vents, which are currently located within the floor frame system, will go down into the foundation system, which is also a more appropriate location for them. So any questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
My only question is why wood per se? Do you like wood as a material nowadays?
Like a cedar? Yeah. We're proposing just a double cedar.
Okay, cool. Just curious why you wouldn't consider it something like a true exterior or something, just to really. Just curious. That's all.
It's really awesome.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
I have one, just for curiosity, anything else. So the stucco was applied directly to, they just put foam on and put cementous stucco, not synthetic.
It's lath and stucco.
It is, there's lath on it.
There's lath.
Okay, I was wondering if you used it.
There's that one picture on the bottom left, like that's. what it
Yeah,
is
I mean, that's,
inside
I
the
saw it was that picture, but I couldn't tell what it was exactly. I was very curious about what they had actually.
foam sheathing.
I don't think there is anyone. Their applicant would like to speak. There is no written public comments either. Frankie, could you give us any staff comments and recommendations?
Okay, we had the observation that wood siding is a more traditional cladding material, and we had a comment about stucco and frame being exterior damage, but it's not on frame.
It still has extensive deterioration, which is causing damage to the building. We're recommending final approval.
Do you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the staff comments? All right, public comment in the applicant's presentation is closed. Let's move into board discussion. I'm gonna make a motion that she can do whatever she wants. Was that a motion for final approval? It was, yeah. Do I have a second to Julie's motion for final approval? Second. Thank you. Put the motion to a vote, Fillmore? Dewey?
Yeah.
Julia? Yeah, in favor. Bill Turner?
Yeah.
Chair moves to the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, agenda item 13 is 1 East Battery. Frankie, give an introduction overview, please.
1 East East Battery is requesting to change material of door surrounds from metal to glass fiber reinforced concrete. It's category 2 in Charleston, circa 1850 in the Old Historic District. The property's location on East Battery. Existing site photo. Next East Battery. We're not showing the history of the structure. Furniture inventory for my teeth.
So this property sits on, really probably most exposed to the point of the peninsula. Very far takes the weather. A lot of the elements on this side are in very poor condition. These changes like these metal, pressed metal surrounds and the balconies were all. Balconies have to be removed and reattached to the building. Staff has worked with us on proving that. The doors have to be replaced. All that's essentially in kind. But the surrounds, I'm going to show you in detail. So the surrounds are pressed metal. They have been failing for many, many years and have been bigger in really creative ways, including the spray gun. Fill the voids after it's been erected. There was no longer a attachment to the brick. Tabs address it off and just remove it with your hand essentially. So a lot of masonry work to be done, and replacing these would not be appropriate in this location. Salt here in the salt spray this building at the same time. We think it's appropriate to have a better long-term material cast stone. Condition on the edges for the system. With the masonry built. So our plan is to create a more long term benefit of the building and surround. We think a cast stone would be appropriate. Match this building exactly. We've actually used this product in the past. In 2000, we were restoring the Charleston County Courthouse, and the cornice there with brick and brownstone and falling off the building and damaged. And because of the weight limitations there, we asked to use a lighter weight cast stone material. And here, 23 years later, it looks really good. Long-term solution to keep those joints, which get so much weather normally, and then of course they get storms. These materials at the end of the day exactly match what we existing things for the long term build.
Questions for the applicant?
Considering replacing this and certainly not steel, but with a different metal, but keeping the metal, because there's so much of this around Charleston, just like this period everywhere. It all suffers from exactly the same conditions for the most part. I mean, this is certainly a highly exposed area. then consider staying with metal.
Well, we did consider.
Copper, lead coated copper.
It's kind of like with, the attachments, there's always gonna be movement, there's gonna be a board that makes present at some point and get water intrusion, and then it goes in the earth, and then you have the same object. I don't think architecturally it's gonna be distinguishable from metal.
I mean, to reinforce the glass fiber concrete is certainly moldable.
Yeah, it is, and I just think it's just a better long-term solution.
Are you, when you pull the metal off, are you going to have to do anything with the immediate masonry surrounds around the windows for anchoring purposes,
Well,
et
we gotta
cetera?
rebuild them first.
You gotta rebuild them,
There's
yeah.
no order,
Yeah.
it's just-
So you'll pull the windows, rebuild the openings, and that strengthen the openings to receive mounting the GFRC.
You're going to repair or replace the doors.
These are modern buildings.
Yeah.
Do the surrounds, what's the, just curious, the immediate trim at the window openings, is that a separate staff bead or another detail?
It's just a fold,
Oh, and,
flange,
okay,
and stucco over that.
and that becomes the brick mold per se, or whatever the modern.
I mean, it looks fine.
Yeah.
Just the attachment, long and gone. So this way we'll have a kind of masonry to masonry connection. Material, spinning back similarly.
Now where your window is set into the masonry opening now, right?
They're set back.
They're set back far,
And
and
be in
so none of that's gonna be changing, yeah. Okay.
These things have a flange about that big.
Yeah.
They're all, I think.
Yeah.
They have a flange about that wide. And they literally nail them to the brick.
Yeah.
They're all put on in the mixture of clay. Go to the brick and they stuck it over that little flange. It's hard to go.
Yeah.
A house that doesn't, at least have window hoods that are done this way. And so
You find a source. for-
flanges deteriorate. Most of the stuff is galvanized. Deteriorate.
It's galvanized.
Metal blows up. Aluminum steel is a problem. See them go away and be replaced with cast. Fundamentally, it's I mean, we're not in discussion, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
There is, I'm assuming there's no public comment. We had a position statement from Preservation Society. PSC is supportive of efforts to enhance the resilience of historic properties, and while we appreciate the documentation of water intrusion and deteriorating door surrounds, we feel more information is needed to justify this material change. Traditionally, GFRC has been approved at upper levels, less visible from pedestrian drawings, and a sample are needed to understand how closely this material replicates the historic features. Thank you for considering our position in this matter. That received, Frankie, if you'll give us any staff comments and recommendations, please.
We said upstairs that there were some other items that were reviewed by staff as they were replacement in kind. This was coming before the board because it is a change in material and this is rated a category 2, and also to give the board the opportunity to discuss the change in material. Staff was recommending final approval.
Mr. Keys, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment or city staff comments? Or discussion?
It would be nice if we could see an example. It would be nice if we could see a sample of that. Sounds promising.
I mean, I'm pretty confident that the supplier could make molds, reproduce this stuff, and concrete. They look pretty good. They will have a slight masonry look, not actually gonna look like metal, but you're probably not gonna tell the difference. My concern is is that this is a pervasive problem. And that decorative metalwork is really, it's very finely done. And it's a example of real craft. See it start to, the go-to solution would be to change materials. You don't have to put galvanized steel back on there, because I think that's what that was common then. That's what they used as new. If there's a new way, I would like, I'd rather see it stay metal, better solution, better connections, better detailing when it's put back on. I would rather see it. Their stands, galvanized steel roofs, tile roofs around town, they have 14 coats of everything imaginable on them, because they leaked from 10 years after they were put on. And they're going to go away because what are you going to replace them
Really
with?
long term.
You can't replace them in kind. I'm sympathetic to the idea, and I think it's certainly not a terrible solution.
Do you see this as
Sort
maybe
of
not?
start down that road of where it's going to become common to replace these with something other than our policy, or generally is it's a single pane window. It has to be replaced because it's too deteriorated to replace at a time. We don't put a vinyl window over it. So I'm just I'm a little on the fence because I don't think it's a bad material. But I'm just a little
Question given the precedent setting is that it perhaps we could view this particular property differently because of the location and how much exposure it gets in this location. But I'm with you.
This is a really rough spot.
Yeah. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to say that, I agree with you philosophically, almost all the time. But really, it is the exposure on this spot.
It's a very tough spot.
Yeah, and there's a limited number of, let's call it more durable materials that could be formed, cast in a way with detailing that emulates what we used to call press 10, right? You can appreciate that dilemma, because if it were to be replicated again with we have the same evident problems. And I'm surprised the serviceable life has been as long as it has on these right here. And things, maybe the technology's gotten better, but I couldn't say that necessarily that the product you could get now in a metal, unless it was formed out of,
They got a 20-ounce lake for something the last 100 years.
Yeah.
It's doing this is in metal, even in high, in really good quality, like say 20-ounce copper, 20-ounce lead coated copper.
Yeah.
This is it's not. I'm not saying this is a walk in the park, but it's not easy. There are people who do this all the time, custom.
Yeah.
And here in New York, Canada, and Chicago, they do this. And you can certainly make a better joint between the masonry than was made in 1890, when this was probably put on
Retro.
88. They when you pull the stucco back to it, so which enhances it. Would it last as long as glass fiber reinforced concrete? I don't know. But it would be, So it would be keeping them.
I mean,
Or just pervasive.
would it make any difference to you to see a sample, or you just, you know what it would look like, right? You don't need to see a sample of the
No,
capstone?
I think, honestly, I'm confident that you can reproduce it in the last 5 years. And they would look slight, makes it would
Not
look, it would
perfectly
look like
flat.
this. But they would, for all practical purposes. If I look closely, nobody, I think most people would not notice the difference. And, you know, these things get 40 coats of lead paint on them. They lose a lot of the paint built too. You know, it's a tough call.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more open to the idea of using it. GFRC proposal would come in for like FRP. I wouldn't be open to that. It's basically molded fiberglass with the finish of stone applied, sprayed onto it. Wouldn't be agreeable to that. I only made that point because it does get down to, obviously as time goes on, there are going to be proposals for more modernly available materials that can replicate the details, exactly the details, can be part of an installation that will provide a more durable solution for the house in this location. So I only wanted to say that to differentiate the fact that I think there is a difference between some of these materials that we may see coming up for replacement purposes like this. And I think there's a big differentiator. I'm just saying it for the record between GFRC and FRP. I would not see FRP as an acceptable mediation or solution for this. So I think GFRC, being a masonry to masonry application, and the idea that you can weather tight that detail a lot better. I'm open to approving use of this. My only reservation, I think to Julia's point, seeing it, just texturally seeing it, is making sure that when you do finish it, it can be pretty smooth to have the appearance of the metal, the smooth painted metal. So I don't know, sample can be presented to Frankie to show, but I don't even know if that matters. But if you slap enough paint on it, eventually it'll smooth out itself. So that's what I'm saying. I'm okay with GFRC, so I'll make a motion for final.
We have a motion on the floor for final approval. Do we have a second to Bill's motion?
I'll second.
Put the motion to a vote. Fillmore?
Nay opposed.
Bill? Turner?
Saying this only because of the location, because it is so brutal. And I don't want this to set a precedent. Yeah.
You can make the comments that.
Do you want to put that in the motion, maybe? That'd be like through history.
We can procedurally do that now. We have to
I
get
think it's in the record that we are stating it's not precedent.
I think we're saying that, and we want that in the record. The location and everything else we're talking about. It's a special situation. Yeah, in fact.
Your vote to the majority and the motion passes 4-4 and 1 against. Thank you. Agenda item number 14 is 10 Limehouse Street. Frankie, can you give us an introduction of review?
Listing conceptual approval for fenestration alterations for pool house and addition of pergola. A category 2 in Charleston, circa 1859, in the old and historic district. The main house, the dates of that, so I'll write that one down. This is the location on Limehouse Street. Historic house, yes, they did the pool house a couple of years ago. Existing site photos, some context of Limehouse. And more maps showing the history of the structure. And the architectural inventory from 1973. Over to the applicant.
I'm Michael Strokel with PE Fair Architects, representing Megan Jordan Phillips, the owner of the property. So as Frankie mentioned, we're making some very minor changes to the pool house in the rear. This is a category 2 structure, so it's part of the board. So this is a very large property. It was completely renovated and rehabilitated by the same owner in 2018. And so the only changes that we're making to the pool house are changes to 2 openings that were completely reframed and changed in 2018. So this is a preliminary site plan that we're working with Board McLean on. They're still confirming a few things with tree inspectors about pool and all that, so that'll come in separate approval. But we did include it for reference because we're showing a pergola that will and so again, this is the full property. This is the main historic house. This is the pool house that we're making modifications to. And the openings in question here are the 2 doors here and this door here. Actually, that door stays the same. These 2 doors are opening into a larger opening. And so I'll show you an elevation here. So again, in elevation, we previously had a more symmetrical view. However, when I go to, so this was what the building looked like in 2018. So again, we're making no changes to the sides that face the street. The only change is, and we're actually going back to, ironically, pretty much what the opening was previously in 2018. And so again, the first floor of this structure was completely reframed on this side in 2018, so we're really not adjusting fabric. All the siding was milled to match the original at the time, and all the framing again was from 2018. We did work, again, working with Board McLean, we were showing some details on the pergola, and that is being requested out front here, which would be behind the landscape wall. Would be visible from Greenhill Street on the rear of the property. And so we've got some details there. And the doors that we would be proposing are a louver door that we're working with MW. It is heated in full space, so there'd be some glass behind it with a louver door at front. You can see from the street. We have spoken with HCF, Preservation Society, PR staff, and kind of having objections. We did include some details if there's any possibilities.
Are there any questions for the applicant? There is no public comments, either spoken or written. Frank, do you have some staff comments and recommendations?
We just had the observation that it was also, because it was rated category 2. Staff, our recommendation was conceptual approval of the final review by staff, but we would not be opposed to a final.
I assume no. Rebuttal? We'll move into board discussion.
I think it's interesting that the opening size proposed is similar to what was there before. And I don't really have any problem with it. Also, noting the fact that this trellis sort of structure is actually independent of the building, which is almost makes it just a garden structure. So I really don't have any problem with this at all.
Mr. Final approval? Sounds like I got a motion for final approval with Oh,
With
well,
nothing.
no, with nothing. Final approval, do I have a second to Julie's motion?
Second.
Bill Turner,
Wait,
Fillmore,
Yes, in favor.
Julia?
In favor?
Vote please.
Yeah,
Chair majority and the motion passes unanimously.
that's what you get for waiting.
Thank you.
Say it wasn't worth it.
So agenda item 15, Trumbo Street, this is an automatic approval, so I do not continue to go through.
I need to leave so I don't influence your decision.
No.
She's recusing.
No, this is one of those situations I don't think you can.
I know, right? I was joking.
And I will also add, I did not ask for Erin to be here to represent her. Actually, I told her she didn't need to be here because it's an automatic approval.
This is one I don't think that we can deny, so
Correct.
on this particular, I will, and there's no public comment, no written comment, I will make a motion for approval because we have a choice.
Second. We're approving because we don't have to approve.
Yeah.
Because you can't
I don't
not.
think we have a choice. This is
It's
not-
automatic, it just because the original approval was done by the board, the renewals have to be done.
Done by the board, gotcha.
Wait, just give me one more second, because we need to go a bit. Which one? Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, okay, listen, we need to, the second was Bill Cooley. We need to go back to agenda item number 2, 33 Plainset, they are not available. I will make a motion for deferral. Second to this.
Second.
Favor, say
Aye.
None opposed.
Madam
Do I have a
Chairman,
motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. First, Bill Huey, second Fillmore, all in favor?